It's Locked On Giants Live. Traina, Tainah, dog, next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to Locked On Giants Live. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credentialed member of the New York Giants media for Locked On and for Giants Country, part of the Fan Nation Network. And special shout out to all my everydayers, my newcomers, my Blue Crew community members, and everybody in between. You guys are the best. And just a special announcement before we get into the show. I'm celebrating 7 years on the Locked On Network.
Wow. Actually, I saw that on Twitter, right?
I know. I couldn't believe it. I knew it was coming up, but 7 years. So I want to thank everybody who sent greetings and congratulatory messages. It means so much to me. And folks, we got Locked On Giants Live tonight. We're going to have Tainah, who's here with us. Dog is going to join us. Rumor has it he's shaving because he doesn't want Papa Guzzo to razz him somewhat. So I think he's shaving, but he'll be here shortly. When he pops in, I'll of course add him to the stream. So Tainah, my friend, we didn't have you last time. Good to see you. How are things going?
Yeah, excited to be back. Excited to be talking some offseason Giants football. Offseason will really start to heat up around the combine and free agency, but I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about. I mean, listen, the draft's only like 2.5 months away? Like, it's going to be here before you know it. So exciting times, no doubt about it. A lot of ways the New York Giants could go.
Yeah, and we're going to, I'm going to wait until Dog gets in here as best as I can, because we're going to go through all the position groups and what we think the Giants are going to do. But, let's start off, obviously we could talk about the coaching situation. I think since we last did a live program, I want to say Brasillo hadn't been hired, and I
don't think so. I don't think
Brasillo had been hired. Obviously, the defensive coordinator position not yet filled as of this this taping. Although I've been told to keep my phone handy just in case something comes up, because I'm expecting the news any minute now. But let me ask you, Tainah, what do you think of the Brasillo hiring?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've learned. Especially in recent history over the last 2, 3, 4 years, I'm not going to get excited about any individual coach. But listen, you have to think he's an upgrade. Bobby Johnson was awful. And the thing that I liked about him is he has a track record of going into not ideal circumstances and getting the most out of those players. When he went to the Raiders, I think it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, whenever he initially took the job, they were like the 27th ranked offensive line. His first year there, they had 16 or 17 different starting lineups due to injuries and guys that maybe not having the most talent on the line in general. So there was a lot of shifting. And they had the 10th ranked offensive line in the NFL his first year there. So he flipped them from one of the league's worst to above average. And then I think he doubled it up with 12th ranked the next year, if I'm not mistaken. So clearly a guy that has shown he has some credentials. He's been able to get something out of what was perceived to be not much when he initially took the job. So hopefully he could bring that to the Giants, because we all know as Giants fans, we've definitely tried our best in terms of draft picks to try to improve this thing, right? When you think about what we've done, we spent the 4th overall pick on a left tackle, 7th overall pick on a right tackle, mid-second round pick on a center, something that is very high for that individual position. And I'm sure we'll talk about it throughout the stream. I think we're going to spend another relatively high pick on the offensive line this year. So you have to think with all that talent, if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the Raiders had many high draft picks on that offensive line, but he was able to get something out of it. And he can't be worse. And it's probably the most important offseason move the Giants are going to make this entire offseason is that offensive line coach and whether or not he could get this thing on track, something that has not been on track for over a decade.
Yeah, and I know there was a report that came out that, Brassillo rubbed people the wrong way when he was in Las Vegas. I mean, for what it's worth, guys, I had Hondo Carpenter, who covers the Raiders for I think it's Raiders Today. It's part of the Fan Nation Network. Excuse me. I also had Quentin Myers, who is our Locked On Raiders host. Both of them put their name to this, okay? They both told me that Brassillo was well-liked and well-respected by his peers. So I'm just putting that out there. I know some people are like, oh my God, the Giants hired another, Brian Daboll, mini Daboll. No, I mean, I had two guys willing to put their name to it. So take it for what it's worth.
The proof will be in the pudding, but I'm excited for change, if nothing else. And hopefully you can get something out of these guys. I think it's a combination of poor coaching for sure. I think that's a big part of it. But I feel like a lot of fans over the course of the year just think that if you switch the coach, it's going to work. No, I think it's a combination of both. I think you need improved coaching, but we also need improved talent there. Like our offensive line was like the worst in the NFL last year. And obviously Andrew Thomas being down for 6 weeks or so, whatever it was, contributed to that. And I think it really goes to show you just how important he is to this football team. You really appreciate just how important he is after you saw how bad the line was without him this past year. But yeah, we need to continue to try to improve that line this offseason in the draft and in free agency, because right now I don't trust either guard. And if I'm being honest, I don't trust the center yet either. I think he could be good, but got to see more growth from him. And I'm not, by no means am I saying, no. I still have faith he's going to be good, but you got to see it. The proof's in the pudding.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting is Bobby Johnson changed a lot of their technique. They, a lot of those guys in college, they block straight up, and he had them blocking on like a 45-degree angle. So you take an Evan Neal who's top heavy and you ask him to block on a 45-degree angle. Guess what? Gravity's going to work against him. And we saw that. How many times did we see him on the ground? All right. Yeah. So I don't know, what Brassillo is going to do as far as how he's going to change their technique up. That's something I want to watch when we get to the spring. I want to see how well, assuming, of course, Evan Neal is ready to go. He's coming off that surgery. I want to see where he fits into the offensive line. I still say move him to the left side, to left guard, put him next to Andrew Thomas, because think about it. When was the last time Evan Neal had a solid right guard next to him?
No, I actually agree with you. And I actually want to get your opinion on this, because you're there all the time talking to Joe Schoen and asking him questions. I saw Connor Hughes bring up the possibility of potentially shifting Evan Neal to the guard. The impression I've gotten from, and maybe I've missed a presser, but I've seen at least 2 or 3 offseason pressers from Joe Schoen. And the impression I've gotten is he's going to stick Evan Neal back on the right side and play right tackle. That's how I have felt when I've listened to him talk this offseason. Whenever he was asked about Evan Neal, it seemed like he was confident in Neal that he was going to stay on the right side. I tend to agree with you. I would prefer at this point to shift him to the guard, because I think he'd be much better at that position, and maybe you take a tackle early on in this draft. But what's your take on that? Do you think, because that's the vibe I've gotten, I think he intends to keep Neal on the right side in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, is Shane going to really tip his hand if he says, "Oh, I'm going to move him to the left"? We're going to move him to left guard. Now you're broadcasting to everybody that you need a right tackle,
right?
So why would you tip your hand that early? I want to see, and also when he made that statement, remember they had just fired Bobby Johnson. They hadn't hired a new offensive line coach. They're going to, go to Brassillo and they're going to say, "Hey, what do you think? What do we need to do?" I mean, I would love it if the Giants could get, I can't remember, Michael. I think it's Mike Onwenu. He's with the Patriots, the offensive lineman.
Yeah, I've seen people bring him up because he's got guard tackle versatility.
Yes, yeah. So get him. Bring him down there. Now you have a little flexibility. So if Evan Neal doesn't work out, you cross-train him in the summer between guard and tackle, and now you have flexibility. That's one of the ways I would, the Giants are going to have limited financials for free agency. They're not going to be able to make, huge splashes, but I would definitely bring in a veteran offensive lineman for sure. And one that had guard tackle flexibility. assuming that the Patriots don't franchise tag, is it Awanu? Is that how you say his name?
I
You know what I'm
believe
talking
so. Yeah, I know exactly the guy you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, assuming they don't franchise tag him, I'd go after him with everything.
Let me ask
Seriously, I
you.
mean,
Let me ask you. Because let's say they do what we're suggesting. They do move Neal to the left guard. I think a lot of people have kind of penciled in that the Giants are either going to go quarterback if they trade up or go wide receiver, which is what I think they're going to do. And we'll talk about it throughout the stream. But if they move Neal to left guard, does that open up the possibility to take a guy like Joe Alt at 6th overall, a guy that is thought to be an incredibly talented tackle prospect? Could you foresee the Giants doing something like that?
if they go after a guy like Awanu, no.
No, not. I
Okay.
agree with that. If they don't sign
Yeah.
an Awanu.
Now, wait, there's also, now I can't remember the names. I should have them in front of me, but you got guys from the Raiders who you can probably guess are going to hop over to the Giants. So we got to see who's free agents on the Raiders
Got to
that might
let
come
free
over
agency
here.
play out first. Yeah.
Yeah, so I could see that happening, especially,
Mhm.
if they want to jumpstart that offensive line. But I absolutely believe in my heart of hearts, the best thing is to put Evan Neal next to Andrew Thomas, because he has not played next to a good guard since he has been in the league. And, look, you could say Evan Neal's a bum. That's fine. But who you play next to really does make a difference on the offensive line. If you're playing next to somebody who's, not sure of himself or who's screwing up and you've got to clean up after him, that's a problem. And I think a lot of people overlook that.
No, I think it's a fair point. And you have to figure if he gets to play next to Andrew Thomas, it's going to help his confidence.
You would think. Yep.
Like if he can't play good next to Andrew Thomas playing,
Then
I think
you got a bum.
Exactly. And especially playing a position that I think he's better suited for. When I watch Evan Neal, and by no means do I claim to be some like offensive line expert, but when I watch Evan Neal, the one thing that really stands out to me, you brought up the bend, also his break off the line, off the snap.
Mhm.
Like he's so slow to react. I think he'd be better suited at the guard position where it's not as important, where you can get beat off the edge. So I think that is the natural transition for him. And I think if you're Joe Schoen, you got to swallow your pride a little bit, because I understand he was the 7th overall pick and it doesn't look good on you if you got to shift him to the guard. But I'm hoping that's what they do. Just the vibes I've gotten from Shane, I haven't felt that, but I hope you're right. I hope that's what they do.
Well, again, I don't think Joe was tipping his hand. And you know what? There's no shame in shifting him. I mean, when Zach Martin came out, wasn't he a college tackle and they shifted him inside the guard?
Did, but if I'm not mistaken, though, I think they shifted him to the guard right away. Like,
yeah. So there's look, the bottom line is you need ideally, you need 5 reliable offensive linemen.
Yeah.
And if you have them, ideally you'd like to leave Evan Neal a tackle. But after 2 years, if he's just not cutting it. Now, I had on who was it? I forget who the guest was I had, but I think it might have been Damian Parson. He's like, if the Giants are planning to move Evan Neal, they've got to make that decision right away before he starts training, But they do have some time on their side. And the reason I say that is because Neal is recovering from the ankle surgery. He is probably not going to be ready to rock and roll,
week 1
for the spring. So,
Yep.
All right, Dog just came in. So let me add him to the stream. Where is my 3 people person? Oh, here he is. Dog, what is up?
What's up? The Super Bowl is upon us, and the Eagles and Cowboys are not there.
And you
they didn't even get to the divisional round.
Beautiful.
And you shaved, right? Did you shave tonight?
No, I shaved Wednesday.
Sorry, Papa Guzzo. I thought he was shaving. I thought he was going to be late because he was shaving.
Wednesday.
Papa Guzzo.
No, I just wanted around to do today, so I just was late today.
You let Papa Guzzo down.
I always let Papa Guzzo down. He's used to it by now. He shouldn't expect much from me.
Oh, man, that's funny. All right, so, Dog, we'll get you caught up. Chris and I were talking about the offensive line and the possibility of Evan Neal getting shifted over to left guard and why it makes sense. And, could that open things up for, Joe Alt to be drafted? Could it open things up for the Giants to maybe go get Michael Wanu if he becomes available from the Patriots? So that's kind of where we were at before you came in.
I don't want to draft a lineman.
I also don't think I want to sign a Patriots lineman. We saw what happened with Nate Solder.
Listen, if they feel Evan Neal could be more productive next to Andrew Thomas, I'm all for it. But To me, I know this line has been a major issue for years, and they continue to take swings at him. They continue to miss. I don't want to draft a lineman. I want to do something different. We need a playmaker. I don't care if it's a quarterback or wide receiver. The Giants have to do a 180. They can't. They got to go outside the box this year. There's no question. This has failed for years. So
Yeah.
I don't want to take a chance on Joe Alt. I don't want that. To me, I'd rather just see what Evan Neal can do with a new line coach and take a chance. I mean, you drafted him 7th overall to play right tackle. If it don't work out this year, then I would consider it. But I don't know. If there's not a quarterback to be had, man, give me Roma Dunze, give me Malik Neighbors, give me somebody that Daniel Jones can throw the ball to. Give me somebody that gets open. Give me a playmaker that can open it up for the other receivers on the team. You know what I mean? I don't know. I want something different. I want a new toy. I want a fast car. That's what I want. You know what I mean?
Right.
I drive a Nissan Rogue. It gets me from point A to point B. But you don't think I'd like to drive a Maserati? Give me somebody that can make a play.
Hey, speaking of Nissan, did you know they were going to be one of the sponsors on tonight's show?
I did not, but how about that? I plugged the sponsor.
How about that? Yeah, spoiler alert. Nissan is one of the sponsors of tonight's show. So thank you to Nissan for sponsoring tonight's show.
Yes. Thank you to Nissan for allowing me to have a very reliable vehicle for the last 7 years too. Appreciate it.
Okay, so if the Nissan people are watching, they'll know that you've got an endorsement right there from an actual Nissan driver. I used to drive a Nissan too back in the day too. The great cars, but
soccer dad car.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk about the defensive coordinator situation. You know, I mentioned at the start of the show, Dog, that I am holding on to my phone because I'm expecting any minute now. I don't know if it's going to be tonight or it'll probably be tomorrow when I go out and I have my fun afternoon that I have planned, but I'm expecting that there should be an announcement coming on the defensive coordinator. Now, we know Bobby Babich is off the board. Yeah. We know Denard Wilson is off the board. I believe Denard Wilson was the choice all along, but why he didn't come here, I know some people think, oh, it's Stable's personality. They didn't want to come here. I suspect, and this is just my theory, I don't have any proof of this. Nobody told me this, but Denard Wilson starting out, if I were him, I would probably want to go to a team where I could pick my staff. And if you think about it, the Giants staff is already in place. Really, the only guy you've got to replace is the outside linebackers coach. And they might even tell the inside linebackers coach, okay, you are now coaching the entire linebacker group. So that's why I think maybe the Tennessee job was a little bit more appealing to him. Why he might have gone there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think the other thing that's probably more appealing to him is it's a fresh start. You're starting. Right. It's a brand new head coach there too. So it's not like Dable might be on the hot seat next year. Like if the Giants have a bad year, Dable could be fired, and then all of a sudden he's out of a job. So he probably looks at Tennessee as at least a 2-year commitment. So it just makes more sense. It's a more attractive job for that alone.
Absolutely. All right. So with Wilson off the job, and then Leslie Frazier, not that he was on the board, but he just got hired, I think, by Seattle to be the assistant head coach or associate head coach. So that leaves you with what, 5 guys? I think, and I wrote about this over at Giants Country. The more I think about it at this stage of the game, I wonder if it's going to be Jerome Henderson. And the reason why I say that is because, look, they've gone through the scouting process. Henderson knows the defensive personnel, the scheme. You know, he worked for 2 years under Wink Martindale. He can take the scheme, not change it up a whole lot, just tweak what wasn't really working. So that doesn't mean, you know, okay, a new defensive coordinator comes in and decides, hey, Dexter, we're going to move you from nose tackle back to defensive end, where, you know, Dexter has had more success at nose tackle. So I think at this point, and some people will say, oh, the Giants are settling for scraps. No, I don't believe that. I think it's going to be Jerome Henderson. I'd be surprised if it wasn't him.
Yeah. Right before we started the show, that's what I said to you. That's where I think it's headed because it makes the most sense. I mean, at this point, like he's a guy that is at least familiar with the players on this defense. Mm-hmm. I think he could do who knows with all these guys. You don't know. Like Vic Fangio, I would have been like, wow, like I've seen what this guy's been able to do as a DC with the 49ers, in my opinion, and I hate to say it because the Eagles got him, one of the top 2 or 3 defensive coordinators in football. But whether it be Henderson, Wilson, whoever it may have been, we don't know how it's going to turn out. I know Jerome Henderson, though, is a very respected guy. We have a young secondary, obviously, with Deonte Banks. Maybe we bring McKinney back as well. So he's familiar with the players. I agree with you. I think at this point, he's the one that makes the most sense.
Right. Yeah. People are saying, well, why didn't the Giants just do that right from the get-go? You do due diligence, guys. I mean, look, everybody was screaming, oh my God, the Giants hired an offensive line coach. They didn't go through the process. Why did they hire so quickly? Well, now Dable, the defensive coordinator position, remember this, not that the offensive line coach wasn't an important hire. It is. But with the defensive coordinator, you ideally want someone who you're not going to have to babysit, especially if the Giants bring in a young quarterback and Dable decides, I want to be more involved in the play calling.
Has that been I haven't been super active on Twitter. Has that been a talking point? People have been like, why are the Giants taking so long to hire a DC? Has that been something?
Absolutely.
I looked it up today because I was just curious because I'm like, it's February already. We don't have a DC. We hired Wink last year, 2 years ago, I should say, on February 11th. So It's not like and obviously I remember that year we were waiting to see if Patrick Graham would come back, but it is what it is. I think the Giants are doing their due diligence. If people are saying that's ridiculous.
But, everybody wants answers yesterday. I get it. I understand it. But, I think at this point that Henderson makes the best, the most sense. Now, is it going to be him? That I can't tell you. I don't know that for sure. I mean, this afternoon I sat up and I wrote 3 different scenarios for Giants country. And I shot 3 different videos to drop on a dime, for my YouTube shorts. So hopefully it's going to be one of the 3 guys that I covered in this exercise. So, I mean, Dog, you have any thoughts on this?
I mean, it makes the most sense because you can't please anybody. The only way you're going to please Giants fans is winning football games. Until we win football games, everybody's going to question everything. Why'd you hire him so fast? What's taking so long to hire the guy? You can't win. You can't. Yeah. I mean, I'm active on Twitter. I see it every day. Oh, we got to fix the line. We got to get a quarterback. Got to get a wide receiver. Got to get rid of Dable. He doesn't know what he's doing. Joe Schoen sucks. I've at this point, I kind of wave the white flag and just say it is what it is. I have no control over what they do. I do still believe in Brian Dable and Joe Schoen. I do. Like, people are like, oh, Joe Schoen's draft picks suck. I'm like, he's been here 2 years. Wandale Robinson looks like a damn good player. Kayvon Thibodeau looks like a damn good player. Could he be more consistent? Of course. But he's in his second year. Dayton Dalton at the end of the year. Right. Micah McFadden's been fantastic. I mean, Deonte Banks looks amazing. Daniel Bellinger is he's not a superstar, but I mean, he's a solid player. We didn't get to see Jalen Hyatt play a ton, but he showed flashes. We didn't get to see Eric Gray at all, except we're in a position he never did before, returning punts. So it's hard for me to say, oh God, he's been terrible at drafting when he's had 2 classes, and one was a rookie class last year. But until they win football games, everybody's going to question everything. I understand it, but like I said, I can't control it. Whatever Joe Schoen decides to do, even if it is Joe Alt, which I don't want, if he took Brock Bowers, I would not be happy, but I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, got to fire him. I'm not doing that. If this happens for a couple more years, then I'll be all over him like I was Gettleman, but I gave Gettleman 4 years. After year 3, I was like, well, if they keep him, I'm okay with it. If they fire him, that's where I was after year 3. If they keep him, fine. If they fire him, fine. I'm not really after year 4. It's like you got to go.
No, the writing was on the wall at that point. Yeah.
So at that point, you started to see cracks of what Dave was doing, and I look. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt too, but when I started to see, what he was doing, especially in that last year and a half, I was like, Dave, what are you doing, man?
They panicked. They panicked that last year.
They did. They really did. And I told, I remember having a conversation with somebody in the organization on what Dave had done with the free agent spending and everything. I said, you realize that he just screwed your cap for the next 2 to 3 years. You realize that, right? And I was told, you don't understand the tactic. I don't understand the tactic. Please.
How about Bobby Okereke? That was a pretty good signing.
That was a good right. And what you got to like about Shane is that he doesn't go hog crazy in free agency. He's got it's the same situation this year. Got a limited amount of resources, financially speaking. Don't expect him to go hog crazy and get a number one receiver and an edge rusher and an offensive lineman. He's going to prioritize. And right now, if I were him, if I were advising him, I'd say, look, Joe, get yourself a veteran offensive tackle or offensive lineman who could be a guard tackle. Get yourself an edge rusher.
Yeah, that's
I've been get a number one receiver. Use the draft to get your quarterback.
Yeah,
and a cornerback. And additional defensive line help.
With the edge, I've been pushing the edge in free agency now for a few months. I think that's the move they're going to make because you think about how that could really grow a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau, having that guy on the other side with Dexter Lawrence. And there's a lot of things they could actually did a video on this on the cap manipulation that they can do when you look at these contracts that they have. Andrew Thomas, he's signed through 2029. They could easily take $10, $15 million off of this year's cap it and spread it out over the next 5 years. There's things that Shane could do to create space.
Absolutely.
But I agree with you. He's not gonna be stupid, but I do think he could be selectively aggressive this year and try to fill some holes in free agency while building through the draft. And that was another really smart thing. The thing that I love about Shane, and by no means am I completely sold on him. He's got a lot more to show us before, but he's got a clear plan. I loved what he did last year in terms of the extensions with Dexter Lawrence, with Andrew Thomas, extending them before the market accelerates, getting them on the 2023 rate rather than waiting until 2024, 2025. Things like that are good signs that you have a forward thinker as your general manager. And people could bash the Daniel Jones signing all they want. I think most rational people understand why he did what he did. If they would have tagged Daniel Jones, it would have had the same negative ramifications.
They would have had Okereke.
Right. And if you had Okereke,
you wouldn't have had Barkley either.
And
you might have had those guys, but if you had them, you would have had to backload their salaries even more so, which would have just as much of a negative effect as the future cap did if you signed Jones to the 2-year extension. So, which I call it a 2-year extension because it's an easy out after 2 years.
What it is.
I think he's got a clear plan. We just got to let him carry it out for the next couple of years.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
what edge rusher? I think we talked about this last time, Patty, when you and I did the show.
Yeah, we talked about Chase
the market
Young.
Guy, like Chase Young was
one, but there's another guy in
Josh Allen. Can we get him over here? I know he's going to cost a fortune, but can we?
Yeah, but you know what? They might franchise tag him.
I think they will. Unfortunately,
I think they're going to franchise.
I don't franchise. Let us have him. Chris and I, we got known because we didn't draft him. Can we bring him?
Gettleman almost drafted Josh Allen back when it came down to Allen and Jones, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
I didn't know he almost drafted him. I know that for a fact.
I did know that. I did know that. I remember reading
tempted to take Josh Allen, but I think he panicked because the rumor was that Washington was looking to get Jones, and I think because initially I remember saying that year that I expected Jones to be the second. Because remember they had 2 first-round picks that year. I said Jones will be the 17th pick, and they'll go with Josh Allen in the first, with the first pick. And because rumor got out that I think I want to say Washington was one team, and I want to say the Bengals might have been the other.
Denver was one that
there were a couple. There were at least 2 teams that were rumored to want Daniel Jones. So I think Gettleman panicked.
I got an interesting name, and I don't know if it will become available. I was just looking at the free agency edge rusher list. I got an interesting name, and I don't know what his market's going to be. How about AJ Epinesa? He's a free agent. Joe Schoen was part of the drafting process with Buffalo.
Yeah.
He's been a pretty good player for the Bills. There's a
possibly that's somebody to keep an eye on.
I think there's a value lineman that could make sense for the New York Giants, but Josh Allen is the cream of the crop in this class. I agree.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he's going to get franchise tagged.
They get him and see that's a problem. You can't worry about what other teams are going to do. You got to worry about building your own team, and then you have to adjust. That's really what it was.
Well,
he had a 17 pick. I mean, he could have tried to work something else. Hey, listen, I mean, he traded back up into the first round that year to get freaking the Georgia kid,
cornerback Baker,
right? So, I mean, I don't know. That draft will. They
really wanted Justin Herbert in that draft, but remember, Justin Herbert decided to go back to school.
The thing about it, Patty,
that was another case of the worst kept secret of what the Giants wanted that year. Because I remember we were all talking about that in January, that if Justin Herbert came out, he was going to be the Giants pick with that number 6 pick.
Chris and I talked about that when we started our show. That was like our guy. But think about it. If he would have drafted Josh Allen and Washington took Daniel Jones, the Giants could have ended up with Justin Herbert the next year. Is crazy.
Well, they didn't know what.
I know hindsight's 2020 now, but
yeah,
you know,
you don't know where if we
that's,
would
I mean, you don't know where we would have
we
picked,
might have
but
had a better team. You know, you don't know. But yeah, I agree with you. If you're doing a redraft game, I agree with you. Maybe we end up with Justin Herbert. It is what it is.
We would have had Eli the whole year, and our team was terrible. I mean, we probably would have ended up with Justin Herbert.
Well, I mean, I just real quick, I see questions popping up in the boxes. Hold on to your questions, folks. We'll get to them a little later. But, this year, the big question, quarterback or no quarterback. I don't think the Giants are going to trade up. I know I saw something on Twitter saying that the Giants were one of 5 teams who were planning to talk to the Bears about trading up. They got too many needs to trade up. I've had people say to me, oh, what about if they trade for Justin Fields? Nah, I don't see that happening either.
That makes no sense.
You have a lot of needs and not a lot of resources here. Could I see the Giants maybe trading back into the bottom of the first round to get a quarterback? That I could see. Giving up one of their second round picks? Absolutely. But I would be really, really surprised if the Giants trade up to number 1 overall. And here's another thing. I saw that Denver is interested in traded up to get a quarterback. So that's another little fly in the ointment, if you will. I mean, why I think it's going to be a receiver right now, sitting here today, I think it's going to be a receiver if the Giants stay at 6. And I could even see the Giants trading down a few spots to pick up more assets.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. I don't think the Giants would not trade up, personally. I think if there was a trade to be had, Shane would at least think about it with this class of quarterbacks, but I don't think there's going to be a trade to be had. I don't buy these rumors about the Chicago Bears. And you're starting to see people come off of that. Ryan Poles last year passed up on the opportunity to take C.J. Stroud. He's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league already. You're telling me that now he's going to bypass the opportunity to draft Caleb Williams to keep Justin Fields? I ain't buying it. I think Poles is staying there. I think he's taking who I feel is the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. That's how good I think Caleb Williams is. And I think he's staying there, and I think he's going to take him. So I don't think there's a trade to be had. So I'm in agreement with you, Patty. I think, realistically speaking, we're taking a wide receiver. I would be moderately surprised if we don't. I think Malik Neighbors more than likely will be the pick if he's there.
If they don't trade down.
But I do agree with you that a trade up into the first round is a possibility for a guy like a J.J. McCarthy or like one of those second-tier quarterbacks, because if you're the Giants, you could look at what the Packers just did, and you could say, well, listen, if we trade up to 27 and we take a guy, let's just throw McCarthy. I personally like McCarthy in that range. I don't like him at 6. Let's say they said, let's take this young 21-year-old quarterback. He could ride the bench for a year like Jordan Love. Obviously, it was 3 years with the Packers, but there's no pressure there. You let Daniel Jones ride out the year with the contract, and there's not a ton of financial commitment there either, being that it's a late first-round pick. That I could see making sense. Where we're picking, the teams that are picking in front of us, I don't think we're going quarterback at 6, and I'm leaning we're not going to go quarterback in the second round either or trade up, but I think that's a more realistic possibility. I could see that a back end of the first round quarterback.
Yeah, and by the way, on my regular Locked On Giants recordings, when I can get them, I'm getting our college hosts to talk about the top quarterbacks. So on Monday, I have Caroline Fenton of LSU, Locked On LSU. She's going to talk about Jaden Daniels. I had Spencer McLaughlin on, I think it was Thursday's show or Friday's show. He spoke about, the name of the Oregon quarterback, the name Bo Nix.
Bo Nix,
yeah, Bo Nix. Yeah, the names. I'm getting the names mixed up. So that's something I'm doing. I'm bringing on these hosts, and then I want to see if I can get Coach Keith Sanchez, who's part of our Locked On Draft team, with Damian Parson. Those of you who saw the Damian Parson show, I know a lot of you like that. Coach K is pretty good as well. So trying to get some more insight on that. But I think it's, look, the more I think about it, Joe Schoen, I don't know if you guys heard it, but he was on Sirius XM radio. And for those of you who are saying, oh, what else is Shane going to say? I do believe they're going to try and run it back with Daniel to start the season. Joe Schoen basically said, look, you look at the offensive line, how it was a revolving door, and how we had in the Miami game, we had 3 guys from the practice squad, starting for us. You look at, the receivers and how he didn't have time to build up chemistry. which goes back to what I was saying about how Brian Dable should have played the starters more in the preseason. So it just sounds like they want to run it back with Daniel Jones. And here's the benefit of that, folks. I know a lot of you are like, no, they should move on. But here's the benefit. If they do draft a quarterback and it's somebody at the bottom of the first round, second round, if Daniel Jones proves not to be the guy, or even if Daniel Jones shows he has a good season, guess what? Now you try and move him the following year because now you said, okay, you know what, Daniel, you redeemed yourself. Maybe you look to move him, kind of like years ago what the Patriots did with Jimmy G when they shipped him out to San Francisco.
Yeah. That had more to do with Brady, I think, that wanting Garoppolo out of there because he felt him breathing down.
Probably,
but yeah, I completely understand.
But the same scenario.
Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying. And listen, if Jones works out, then that's good too. That's a good problem to have. Then you're like, okay, we'll ride him out for the third year. And at that point, it wouldn't be a horrible contract if he played well. So I agree with you. I don't think that, I mean, Shane has basically all but said it. I don't think they're going to ignore the quarterback position. I think that this is what I think is going to happen. And maybe I'll be completely wrong. I think they're going to sign a very strong backup. I whether it be Gardner Minshew, we've talked about Ryan Tannehill on here before. I think they're going to sign a very strong backup. And if Daniel Jones is ready to start the season, he'll start. But if he struggles for 3 or 4 games, they'll pull the plug quick. I don't think he has the red carpet rolled out for him next year. But I agree with you. I don't think we're drafting a quarterback. And if we do, I think it's going to be day 3. I don't think we're taking a quarterback
day 3
first. Yeah, I don't think we're taking a quarterback with our first 3 picks. I really don't.
I disagree there. I think it's a possibility. I think it's a possibility.
But if I had to predict, I don't think we're going
to. Okay, as of right now, and again, this is a case where what they do in free agency is going to maybe give us a little bit more clarity on the situation.
Yeah.
So that's why, a lot of times when I say, I don't want to talk about the draft until April or until after free agency is done, this is an example why. But yeah, I could see them going with a quarterback, within the first 3 picks. I don't think they will, but I could see it happening.
Oh, I didn't say
especially if somebody falls.
Yeah, I'm just saying what I predict, but I could definitely see it happening.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I completely agree about the free agent comment, by the way. If you sign a Gardner Minshew to $8 to $10 million a year, or if you bring back Tyrod Taylor around the same range, that is a clear indicator to me you're not drafting a quarterback early in this year's draft.
Absolutely. Or you get a developmental guy at that point.
Yeah.
Which I could see them doing. Now, all right, a lot of people were asking, I think Papa Guzzo asked about Saquon. So let's pivot to talk about Saquon. Now, for those of you who missed it, I reported on Twitter that Saquon has dropped Rock Nation from his negotiating team.
Yeah, I saw that.
It was expected. I mean, it did make sense for Saquon to have 2 agencies repping him because he would have had to pay both of them a commission regardless of who negotiated the deal. So CAA is his lone representation now, the same guy who got him into camp last year. All right, so Rock Nation is out. Now, as far as any movement, no, there has not been any movement. Joe Schoen and Saquon did have a brief conversation at the end of the season. Shane said at the Senior Bowl this past week, I'm going to talk with his representative at the combine. Now, follow me on this with the timeline, okay? So the franchise tag / transition tag window starts the last week of February, and I think it ends March 5th, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Sounds about right, if I recall last
year.
The
scouting combine starts the end of February, ends, I think, the beginning of March. I think it ends March 3rd. So what I'm looking to see and what I think is going to try and what they're going to try and do, because Shane, remember, said, I don't want to have to use the franchise tag every year. So what I think they're going to try to do is they're going to sit down with Saquon's agent from CAA, see if they can't get the parameters of a deal in place. Now, I put an article up on Giants Country predicting what that contract's going to look like if anybody wants to take a look at that. All right, I had like 3 years, 30-something million. Mm-hmm. So if they can't get a deal done by the end of the combine, they now have, I think, 2 days before the window closes to assign the franchise tag. That's when you see the franchise tag come out. And at that point, if they still can't get a deal done, if they say to Saquon, look, we didn't get it done. There's still some details to hammer out. We've got to buy some time. So we're going to use the franchise tag to buy it. In the meantime, we'll hammer this out. We'll get it done. Now, if Saquon says, you know what? I'm not happy with the money you're offering me, the terms, etc. I want out. Tag and trade. And don't say for a minute, folks, that, oh, who's going to trade for Saquon? There was a report out today, and I read about it on Giants Country. Harbaugh might want him.
Yeah.
There will be.
You know what, Patty? I think that's a great point. I didn't even think of, because I've been and I love Saquon, but I've been adamant that I do not want to tag Saquon this year because of the $12 million price tag, and I want to be able to use our resources to try to build what I feel are more pressing needs for this team.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a great point. I could definitely see a tag and trade scenario for the New York Giants if they can't get a contract deal hammered out. I don't think they're going to play Saquon Barkley on the tag this year. I really don't. They
can't afford to, Chris, because remember, when they tag him, the $12 million or whatever it is comes out of the cap right away, regardless if he signs it. Yeah. Now, to do a tag and trade, he would have to sign the tag, but the tag now gets transferred over to the acquiring team. So the Giants don't get penalized for it. They get the 12+ million back as a credit to their cap.
I could see that.
It makes too much sense. And they can't carry that money on this year's cap. I already looked at the financials. No, can't be done. Not unless you're planning to shift around more money, which I know Shane doesn't want to keep getting into the habit of. That's why the cap is not totally cleaned up yet. So that's what I see playing out. Now, I feel pretty good based on, having done the research that I've been doing and just, keeping the ear to the ground and whatnot. I think the arrow is pointing in the right direction. Now, unless something crazy happens, and I'll throw out another scenario that if I'm Saquon, I got to consider. Where's he going to get the type of endorsements that he's getting right now in New York? I mean, look. You look at Tommy DeVito and how DeVito's getting, he's got Marriott and he's got, some other big names. You think Tommy DeVito gets that stuff if he's, doing what he did for the Giants, in Green Bay or Jacksonville or another city? No. So Saquon, if I'm his agent and I'm advising him, I'm saying, Saquon, look, yes, this is a fair contract for the Giants. Again, I put a proposal on Giants Country as to what I think he could get. You're also going to benefit because you've got all these endorsements. He's got Silk, he's got Marriott, he's got Nike. I mean, I can't remember all the ones he's got, but he's got a lot. That helps supplement his income, and it comes from being in a big media market. So that has to factor into the equation, I think.
It's a good point.
Just me talking cap.
And I think I think you brought up a really good point about potentially trading Barkley. If they even signed him, I wouldn't rule that out of I'm not saying they would trade him before the year started. If they sign him, he's going to play this year as a Giant to start the season.
Absolutely.
But if the team starts to unravel, that's an option as well. So
exactly.
I hope they get something done, but I hope it's a responsible deal. And it will be because let's be honest, guys. If Joe Schoen last year valued Barkley at what he did, which by all accounts came out to about 21, maybe 22 guaranteed, why would you value him more this year? You have even less pressure to sign him this year. You're not coming off a playoff win. He's a year older. He got hurt. He didn't have as strong of a year. So I don't see Shane giving him an outrageous contract. So if they get a deal done, I agree. I'm confident it's not going to be something that Giants fans are going to be crying about. I think it'll be responsible.
His cap number this year, if they get the deal done, it's going to be under 10 million. I have it projected. I want to say it's between 6 and 7 is what I projected. But again, I don't have the article in front of me. It's on Giants Country if you want to check it out.
I just want to clarify. When you say 6 or 7, you don't mean his average per year salary. You mean
his cap number this year.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Okay.
Which would be well under that would be like half of the estimated 12 million for the cap for the franchise tag.
Yeah.
So that's how I see that playing out. Now, again, unless Saquon is just totally unreasonable, and I don't think he will be. I think he's smart enough to understand, as evidenced by the fact that he came in last year and was willing to play on the modified franchise tag deal. and show his worth, wanting to show his worth. Saquon is not an idiot, and his teammates, I know you guys did a show on Kayvon and his comments and stuff like that. Look, Kayvon's entitled to his opinion, but it helps if you know the business aspect of it. And a lot of these guys don't. So, it wasn't that Shane was looking to screw him and reward Daniel. It wasn't him playing favorites. I mean, look, Dexter got paid. Andrew Thomas got paid. Okereke got paid. This wasn't favoritism. This is business. And running backs, say what you want. The fact of the matter is running backs, the position is being devalued because it is a passing league. So the ergo, the cornerbacks on defense, pass rushers, the quarterbacks, the left tackles of the world, the receivers of the world, those are the guys that are getting the premium dollars, not the running backs.
Well, listen, I mean, the Giants tried to work something out Barkley long before they were Jones, and they got the Jones deal done right under the gun.
Yep.
And that's what happened. If they would have got a deal done with Saquon, they might have tagged him. Who knows? But the fact that they couldn't lose them both, I mean, they didn't want to lose them both, obviously. So they tagged Saquon and they said, well, what are we going to do? I know a lot of people were like, oh, get a stopgap quarterback, but it'd be hard to sell your fan base. Yeah. I guess not for some people. And they said, just run it with Tyrod this year and let Daniel Jones walk. Hindsight being 2020. But the Giants paid Daniel Jones about what they thought he could be, not what he has been. I feel like they paid him on potential. And I just call it a 2-year extension, like Chris, a 2-year extension with a team option for 2 years because they could get out of it after 2025 without question. But they tried to sign Saquon. They tried to get that done during the bye week. He was like the first guy that they tried to get the deal done with, and it didn't work out. So I don't know. They sound like they were like, oh, the hell with you, Saquon. We're going to wait.
They didn't reach out to Daniel too, remember?
Right. So exactly. So they just it's not like they said, oh, the hell with you. We'll wait till the end of the year. They tried to get him done first. And the other thing, like you said, it's diminishing position. It's becoming less and less important, not only because it's a passing league, but because the quarterbacks now become the running backs because they get the touchdowns. Because the guys like Jalen Hurts get 14 touchdowns. Josh Allen gets 13 touchdowns. Daniel Jones can run. It is a mobile court. Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray. The list goes on and on and on and on about the quarterbacks that actually are mobile, that run, that get rushing yards, that get rushing touchdowns. They're stealing these things from the running back where they're not becoming as important. Running backs are almost like decoys. There really isn't a guy. Is there, besides Christian McCaffrey, who's the best in the game, is there another guy on that level? Is there another guy where you're like, we can't afford to lose him? People are like, well, Barkley's 3/4 of the offense. That's great, but our offense sucks anyway. Right? So as I keep saying, put the money, and everybody's bitching about, I want Saquon, but we got to fix the offensive line. Put the money in front of the quarterback, not behind the quarterback.
Thank you.
It's really because if you have an offensive line that's good, a decent running back's going to find holes. You get an offensive line that can push forward. You're going to have a good running. It's about a good running game.
He's also 27 years old. He's not a baby anymore for a running back. That's
and
like
he's been banged up.
You're approaching he is literally at the very end of a running back's prime. Like historically speaking, running backs fall off a cliff at 29. I don't know if that'll be the case with Barkley or not, but it has to be factored in when you're talking about potential contract extensions.
Sure, it does.
And
why?
And we should know better than anybody as Giants fans. What happened when we lost Tiki Barber? we didn't miss a beat because we had the best offensive line in the sport. And we were able to get by with a committee with Jacobs and Bradshaw. I am a big offensive line guy. And I think if Barkley was 24, different discussion. Right. If he didn't suffer his injuries. Extend him. Right. Give him the money. He's 27. This is not the same case as Jonathan Taylor, who was 23 or 24, whatever he was when the Colts extended him this offseason. He's 27. I want him back, but it's got to be reasonable. It can't be what Barkley wants. And everybody poo-poos the Jones contract, understandably so. Obviously, it looks like a horrible contract right now. But what do you think people would be saying about the Barkley contract if he would have gotten it last year? They would have said you paid a running back $30 million or whatever, $14, $15 million a year, whatever he wanted, 27, 28 guaranteed, whatever he wanted, and your team was awful. Barkley got hurt again. He had under 1,000 yards, and you built behind a running back. So the Giants would have gotten destroyed if they did that too.
So you got to win. You win games. Nobody complains about anything. And I saw a comment that says you need a good running game or a good running back to be in a Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl. So Isaac Pacheco is better than Saquon Barkley, is what you're saying, because the Chiefs win with Isaac Pacheco, who was a 7th round pick. It's a good running game. The Eagles got there last year because of a good running game that had to do with
the committee.
Jalen Hurts. Who the hell is the guy that was there? Yes, DeAndre Swift.
No, they didn't have Swift. They had
Miles Sanders. So Miles Sanders,
Sanders,
Gainwell, and it was running back by committee. But the Eagles had a great offensive line that just beat the hell out of teams, right? So look at Dallas. They let Ezekiel Elliott walk. The running back is just, it's not what he used to be. It just isn't. You want a good running game. I understand that. But if you want a good running game, you need a good offensive line, because it does not matter how good the running back is if there's no holes back there and it's 2nd and 9, 2nd and 12. I mean, how many times do we see Barkley get blown up in the backfield? Do you think it matters if that was Eric Gray carrying the ball back there or Saquon Barkley? Eric Gray can lose 2 yards just as easily as Barkley if there's an unblocked defensive end coming at him.
Yeah.
Everybody wants the O-line, so put the money in the O-line. Don't put it in the running back. Put it in the offensive line. Take that money and get a veteran guard. If you want to move Evan Neal to left guard, get a veteran right tackle. Put the money there. That's the way I look at it. Right.
Yep. Now, all right, guys, I got to take a commercial, but I did want to talk about the type of contract and why I think it's going to be a little different from Barkley this year, what I think the Giants are going to offer. I'm going to give you my reasons for it because, again, I did a whole bunch of research on this, but I got to take a quick commercial on this, so we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Hey, Giant fans, are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Well, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class exclusive Google comes built in and is always updating for you to call on for almost anything. And gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assist, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. In short, the 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-side crossover for your next adventure. Nissan's incredible lineup also includes the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder, which has room for up to 8, an expansive cargo capacity, and advanced available 4x4 capability. With 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing, when adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or any of their SUVs and go to your next adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you all day, every day, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, everybody, welcome back to Locked On Giants Live. You got Traina, Tainah, and Dog, and I checked my phone. Nothing yet on the defensive coordinator. I'm keeping an eye on it, but I want to make
real quick. That's exactly what I drive, a Nissan Rogue. So that's pretty fun.
Go. That's exactly I told you Nissan was one of the sponsors this week.
A Rogue, though. That's
DoorDash is also on this week. One of my favorites because I use DoorDash. I'm a DoorDash customer, but anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Barkley contract and how I think it's the proposal or the structure is going to be different than last year. Now, last year, if you remember, Barkley was coming off his first full healthy season in I don't know how many years. I mean, it was a while. He also had a career high rushing yard. So last year, the thought process was they wanted to get the equivalent of the franchise tag for 2023 and 2024, which would have put him upwards of 20. I think it would have put him around 25 million guaranteed money. The Giants were not willing to do that. That's one of the hang-ups from last year's deal. This year, because Barkley's another year older. And as Chris said, he's a little closer to the end of the line, probably. Barkley will probably expect to get, I'm estimating 15 million, which is roughly the 12 million of the franchise tag plus a little extra, because the Giants usually put a little extra on the guaranteed money. 3-year deal, so you can spread that out. 15 million over 3 years, that comes to 5 million per year. Getting out after 2 years, and you put all the guaranteed money in the first year. You put incentives in there, both likely and not likely to be earned. Now, to refresh your memory, a not likely to be earned incentive would be basically based on a number that the player has not achieved in his career. So, for example, Barkley's never run for 2,000 yards. So you could say, okay, we'll pay you an extra $1 million if you run for 2,000 yards. And that money, and not likely to be earned incentive, does not count against the current cap. If he reaches it, it counts against the next year's cap. If he doesn't, then it's like it never existed. So I see more not likely to be earned incentives going into Barkley's Giants contract this year, plus only the guaranteed money being a little less. Like I said, the 12 million plus a little extra to make it 15 million. Maybe there's a roster bonus in there as well, because that's, a mechanism that Shane uses, but the deal's going to look a lot different than I think the deals that were on the table last year.
Yeah. You're muted.
I'm muted?
No, Chris is muted.
Oh, okay. I was going to say. Chris can't hear you. Microphone died out. Okay. Well, anyway, but yeah, I mean, I know that's a lot of financials and mumbo jumbo and stuff like that, but yeah,
Good.
now we got you.
Yeah, I hit the mute button by accident. Actually,
okay.
it wasn't the wire, because I was playing with the volume controls. The Giants did something very similar last year with Daniel Jones's contract. If you remember,
Exactly.
they had the escalators if you hit top 5 in certain statistical thresholds, which obviously weren't very likely, like you were getting at. So yeah, listen, that's a good idea. If they get Saquon for 15 million guaranteed with, like you said, like statistical thresholds that he's not likely to hit, yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, because then you get Saquon here for 2 more years at least. He probably retires as a Giant, and you give Daniel Jones the best chance possible if he is indeed the quarterback next year, and Saquon is here for potentially the rookie quarterback the following year if you move on from Jones, to help him out. So that would be perfect if they could get a deal done like that. I just don't know if Barkley would agree to a deal like that after seeing how strong he was in his opinion last year, rightfully so, that he was worth more than the 20 or 21 or 22 million dollars guaranteed.
Was his old agent feeding him that stuff? And is this new guy telling him, look, Saquon, this is the story, man. This is where we're at.
I hope you're right. Because I think that's a great deal.
I mean, I don't want to knock an agent. I really don't. But she I think she did misread the room. Look, I know there are some agents, when they go into negotiations, they'll say, oh, there's always room for, the other side to come up. And I think that was part of the downfall. And with Joe has always been kind of straightforward. He's been transparent with the players. He'll say, look, this is what we can do. This is why we can do it. And, we get it that you want more money and whatnot, and we do value. And sometimes John Mara will also get involved in these conversations, depending on who the player is. And they try and be upfront and honest with the players. But sometimes you get agents who just say, bull, you can do better than that. Who are you kidding? You're trying to lowball us. And that's the agent's job. I get that. But, at the same point, Saquon always said, I'm not looking to reset the market. Okay, great. He wasn't looking to maybe get 16 mil a year like McCaffrey was. But the guaranteed money for a running back with an injury history, that was just too rich for the Giants' tastes.
Yeah. I hope you're right, because I don't think Shane would be willing to go much higher than that in guaranteed money. Maybe 18 to 20 tops, especially based off what we saw last year. So
I think it's going to be about 15. I would say 15 would be a good number, because if you do a 3-year deal And the third year of that contract is a voidable year, which is what I think they're going to do. I think that's a perfect way to, because remember the cap's going to go up. So absorbing $5 million in let's see, this is 24, 25, absorbing $5 million in 2026 when the cap is going to be like sky high.
It's like 2%. It's nothing.
Yeah. It's not going to be that big of a deal.
Yeah.
So that's, and like I said, you talk about the endorsements and everything. Saquon can achieve financial security for the rest of his life. Just needs to be reasonable about it and not be, not have somebody get in his ear and chirp and say, dude, you're worth Christian McCaffrey money or more. No. He's a great player, a good, locker room guy. Everybody loves him and respects him. I love the guy and respect him. But,
it's a business, though.
It's a business. Exactly.
You got to detach your emotion from the situation. Sometimes got to do what's best for business. And
exactly. And if you're sitting there and you're saying, I want to help the Giants win a championship, well, then how can you conceivably be selfish and say, well, I want to be paid like the top running back, which is why I don't think Saquon wants to be paid like the top running back. He wants to. I believe him when he says, I want to be part of something special that this franchise is building. I believe him.
I hope you're right. I just think if I was in Saquon's position, I would try to win a championship. If I had to take that kind of money, I know a team like the Baltimore Ravens or a team that could really win a Super Bowl is going to be willing to give me that. And
the Chargers, right? The Chargers.
The Chargers.
We talked about the Chargers.
The Chargers, though, the Chargers are on a massive franchise, but it's Los Angeles. I mean, that's a big market too. I mean,
absolutely.
Hollywood, so it's not like he couldn't.
And they're going to be all over primetime this year with Harbaugh now as the head coach.
Absolutely. So it makes too much sense for a tag and trade if it comes down to that. If the Chargers give the Giants a nice haul for Barkley, and I'm not saying it's going to be like an Eli Manning type of deal. That's not going to happen. But think about it for a second here, guys. What did the Giants get for Leonard Williams, a guy who was approaching 30, who was on the last year of his contract and didn't sign an extension before he went to Seattle? What did they get for him?
Second-round pick, middle of second-round pick, top 50 pick.
Wouldn't you say that was a pretty good deal?
That was
one
a great
of the best trades of the year, probably one of the best trades.
So who's to say that Barkley on a tag and trade can't draw something similar?
I think he could. In a hypothetical world where he was healthy and he was playing well, I wouldn't see why he couldn't land something similar like that. Yeah,
absolutely. And if what Ryan Leaf said about Harbaugh wanting to have this superpower running game and do play action and all this stuff, and if Barkley's the missing piece, and you're the Giants, you can't get something done with Barkley, and you can get a tag and trade in place. This is why I've been pounding the drum about the tag and trade. By the way. A lot of people on my channel have been like, oh, you're crazy. He's not going to be tag and trade. Folks, I don't normally take receipts. I am now.
Don't rule anything out with Joe Schoen.
Exactly.
And I'll tell you right now, it doesn't seem likely that they're going to trade up and get a quarterback, but don't rule it out. I'm not going to be surprised at anything he does on April 27th or whatever day that is.
I agree. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we traded up. I think Shane would trade up. I just don't think the trade's there. But if the trade's
I agree with Chris. I don't think there'll be a trade. But if there is,
I think he would.
I'm not. Nothing's going to surprise me if he stays there. If he trades back, if he trades up, unless he drafted like Brock Bowers,
right?
Then I'd be surprised. But listen, I mean, I've said it all along. For me, I love Caleb Williams. I've loved Caleb Williams since they wanted Oklahoma. People are like, I don't trust USC quarterback. I would say he's not a USC quarterback. He's an Oklahoma quarterback. He came from Oklahoma. Lincoln Riley came from Oklahoma. That's an Oklahoma quarterback.
And for what it's worth, I just looked up. I wanted to see where the Chargers were drafting. Again, if the Giants did a tag and trade with the Chargers and Saquon, Chargers are drafting 5th. All right. Now, I mentioned this earlier.
They could take Brock Bowers. I think he's going there.
I mentioned this earlier. Denver reportedly wants to move up to get a quarterback. So if you get, let's see, Denver's drafting where? 12th? So
the Raiders want one too. And I think
the Raiders want one. Supposedly, the Raiders want one as well.
Especially now they got Kingsbury.
All right. But I'm saying if you're the Giants, okay, you figure Chicago may or may not take a quarterback. I don't know if they will, but you figure, let's say for argument's sake, Chicago, Washington, New England all take quarterbacks. So Arizona, you figure is going to take a receiver. You figure they're going to take Marvin Harrison. All right. If the Giants can move up one spot, now they got the pick of the litter. Maybe not a quarterback, but maybe they get the best. They're assured of Malik Neighbors, or maybe if there's a quarterback that they consider worthy of that spot.
Yeah.
Because we don't know how their draft board's going to fall.
Yeah.
Never do. There's always a big shocker somewhere in there. But listen, for me, I don't think they're getting Caleb Williams. I think that.
No, they're not. I don't think Caleb Williams is an option here.
I say it all the time, and I know he's had injury problems. Draft Roma Dunze and get Michael Penix. Put them together. They played well at Washington together. Bring them the hell in. Evan Neal's right tackle. It concerns me too. If you're Joe Schoen, you have got to take a swing, a big swing. And if it messes up, it messes up. But you're going to give yourself job security for a couple more years. If you run this back, if you bunt and pop the damn thing up and don't advance the runners, don't drive in any runners, and you're 5-12 again, now you're really in trouble. So I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know what he can do. This is why we can sit here on this show, on Twitter, in the chat. We can speculate. We can all have our opinions. We can say whatever we want, whatever we feel. None of us are right. None of us are wrong. These are just opinions. Joe Schoen is the only guy that matters. His pick is the only one that matters. We can get mad at it. We can be happy with it. But at the end of the day, whoever he takes needs to perform. Because whoever he takes, whether we agree or disagree, if they come in here and kick some ass and the Giants are winning, we're going to be very happy with that. So I want to be happy with Joe Schoen, not necessarily the player. I want to be happy with Joe. Oh, look at the team he put together. And we're winning. Because it felt good last year. 2022 felt great. I hadn't felt that in a long time. The excitement Chris and I actually had in the streams, especially when we won the playoff game, as opposed to this year where it's before Halloween and Chris, what do you think about Caleb Williams? What do you think about Michael Penix? What do you think about freaking Jane Daniels? And
yeah. Look, I want to start talking about a winning team. I got spoiled last year. It was fun last year.
It was fun.
And I'm talking about 2022. I'm not talking about 2023.
That was
all right. Fun. So they got to get back to that. And you're right. I think if you're Joe Schoen and you're Brian Dable, if you're going to go down with the ship, wouldn't you rather go down with your own guy? Now, they still believe in Daniel. I know people are going to say, well, they said that they believe in Daniel.
Daniel's coming back next
year. Do you want them to say that they think Daniel sucks and they're not going to run it back with him?
Some people
they're going to say they believe in him. Of course
they have to run it back, Patty. They have no choice. They have no choice.
So I mean, that's not to say that they won't get a quarterback on day 2 at some point. That's not to say that although I think the odds of them trading up, I would be surprised. But like we said earlier in the show, it's going to, what they do in free agency with regards to a veteran backup is going to tell us a lot.
That's going to tell you everything.
If they just roll with the veto, if they say, you know what, we're not going to get another quarterback.
We're taking a quarterback in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, and they're probably going to think of moving up.
But if they spend $10 million on a backup, I would be stunned.
They're not drafting a quarterback. There's no way.
Yeah, they're not drafting a quarterback.
Because why would you pay a third-string quarterback? Because that's what, in essence, your veteran, the guy that they paid, if they paid Minshew, in essence, he's your third-string guy. Because the rookie's not going to be a third-string guy.
Yeah.
So, that's obviously
could be a day 3 quarterback in that scenario, but not a day 2.
Day 3 would be you're talking a development guy.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I don't think they would go that. I
like
don't
Joe Milton, that type of guy.
Yeah.
I don't want a developmental guy. If you
want
a quarterback, take a quarterback. Get a quarterback. If you like a guy, get him. But also, 3 top 50 picks isn't nothing to sneeze at. You can fill a lot of positions with 3 top 50 picks. So this year is massive for Joe Schoen. This offseason, the gentlemen guys are getting ushered out. The contracts are ending. You don't have a ton of cap space, but you've had more this year than you had a lot, to work with. You can make the decision on Saquon Barkley. That's your decision. You can let him go if you choose to let him go. You can draft the quarterback and start fresh with your own quarterback. This is his year, especially with 3 top 50 picks. And what do we have? 5 in the top 100 or 4 in the top 70, whatever it is.
4 in the top 70.
You can do a lot with those picks, but he has to hit on these picks, and he has to get He's got to start filling these spots with, that cast. So he goes out and gets free agents.
Yeah.
He's got a decision to make with Xavier McKinney. He's got a decision to make with
McKinney's gone. I don't see McKinney coming back.
I don't either, but
he's going to want way too much money, and they got Dane Belton, and I think they're going to draft at that position. I don't see McKinney coming back. I've had too many people tell me that that's the
I'd like him back, but the way that he's talked, and he's going after the money, and I don't blame
it's
him.
the Landon Collins situation all over again.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I love McKinney. Is my favorite Giant without question.
I love the kid too.
That's a luxury position, and again, you build from the inside out. The safety is like your last resort of last defender out there. I don't want to give Xavier McKinney $16 million a year for 4 years, and that's probably what he's going to command. I bet he commands between 14 and 16 million.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to pay him that when you're cap stricken. If you had the money that Washington has and you could afford that and then still fill your positions, sure, but we're not in that position, unfortunately. So I agree. I think McKinney's not going to play under the tag, and you mentioned it last time we did the show, Patty. Joe Schoen don't like using the tag,
right? So, if he doesn't have to. Richard Carter in the chat, just real quick, he said, great, so we'll have a bad backfield too. Richard, let me ask you a question. Would you rather the Giants spend $16 million a year on McKinney or on an offensive lineman or maybe even on an edge rusher or a number one receiver? Think about that for a minute, my friend. I think the choice is clear how I would prioritize it.
Yeah, I would spend it on an edge if I had to pick between those.
I would pick an edge, or I would get a veteran offensive lineman in here.
Yeah,
I would not go $16 million on a safety, especially when I got a young kid who is, the arrow's pointing up on his development. That's just me, though.
Give me Josh Allen one time.
If he's not franchised, I'm curious to see if they make a play
Chris
for him.
And I deserve it.
I think they would make a play for him if he wasn't franchised.
If he's not franchised, why not?
But I think he will be. But I hope he's not. And I think the Giants should make a play at him.
Will he play in the franchise, though? Would he hold out?
He probably would.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, they're going to, if a deal's not struck, they'll sign the franchise because it's either that or just sit out the season and then they lose a year, a year of accrued service. So, and teams know this. So what if they're not in training camp? It makes more of a difference if, the coach is a new coaching staff. But if a guy sits out, that's why everybody was like, not a big deal. Saquon's missing the offseason last year. Nobody was panicking. Nobody was panicking at all. And even if he had missed training camp, a lot of us were like, it's not going to be a big deal. He's going to sign the tag 2 weeks before the season starts. That's how we saw it happening.
Yeah, 2 days.
Turns out we didn't have to worry about it because Saquon had an epiphany and came to his senses.
Yeah, Richard said, who said 16 million is the price? I mean, you're right. We don't know the price, but I would be shocked if it wasn't 16 million. The franchise tag, the franchise tag for a safety this year is 17 million.
Let me see what the tag is. Hold on.
16 and a half, I think.
Maybe it's 16 and a half, whatever it is.
It's up there, though. It's around.
But if I'm McKinney's agent, who, by the way, he hired the agent that's notorious for getting the
David Moglia, I think is his name.
That's where I start in my negotiation.
Safety tag is 16.258 million.
16.25. So if I'm the agent, I say that's the baseline. So
that's at least for the guaranteed money.
That's the baseline. Like he's going to want at least, I think, $17 million a year. He might get more than that, but
let's see who the top paid safeties are, and because he's going to want to be paid like a top paid safety. So let's see, safety. Who are some of the top paid? Derwin James, $19 million a year. Minka Fitzpatrick, 18.2. Jamal Adams, 17.5. You don't think he's going to want at least Jamal Adams' money?
Better than Jamal Adams.
Jesse Bates, $16 million.
Yeah.
Harrison Smith, $16 million.
He's going to want more than that.
He's going to want 17 to 20 million a year. That's what he's going to want.
He's going to want to be paid in that. I don't know if he's going to get it, but that's what he's going to look for. And I can tell you right now, the Giants aren't going to pay him that.
No. I can see way. 4 years, $67 million from somebody. I can easily see that. 4 years between $65-70 million.
Exactly.
He's going to get that.
Exactly. So, that's why I say I am not overly confident that McKinney comes back. I've had
I don't think he's coming back.
tell me that the arrow's not pointing in that direction.
It's too much money. And it's not because they don't want to keep him. It's because they can't afford to keep him.
They have other needs.
Right, that's what I
They
mean.
pay
They
McKinney. I guarantee you're not getting an edge rusher. You're probably not getting a veteran offensive tackle.
Yeah.
They have Dane Belton, and I know Belton is not as good as McKinney, but Belton is not, he's an up-and-comer. He hasn't hit his ceiling yet.
And you could draft a safety, too.
And you can draft a safety, absolutely.
Well, Dane Belton played really well at the end of the year. He was definitely making an impact at the end of the year. So, again, he's in the second year. You can easily ride him and just, figure it out. But, again, because our line of scrimmage sucks. This is why we lose games, because our line of scrimmage gets bullied around. We don't get to the quarterback with 4 guys. We don't get there. So it's easy to convert on 3rd and 10 against us. And because we have no offensive line, it's almost impossible for us to convert 3rd and 5, 3rd on passing downs. So why would you give a safety all that money when you need to build the line?
Exactly.
Like I said, I love McKinney. I bought McKinney's jersey. I'm buying jerseys. And I would love him to be back, but it doesn't make sense for this team to pay a safety a ton of money. It just doesn't to me.
Nope, not with the needs they have. If they were one player away, I'd say go for it. Right. They're not. Yeah. They're not. Think about this, guys. For what it's worth, you're paying Daniel Jones because you have to carry him on the cap. If you draft a quarterback in the first round, which I don't know if they will, that's going to take up a big chunk. So now all of a sudden, if you look at the distribution of how the position units are paid, you're going to have a gross tilting in one direction. You know what I mean? So you want to distribute your financial assets as best as possible to cover as many needs as you can. You don't want to be top heavy with the cap. When I talk about top heavy, one of the things I do, and I'm going to look at over the cap because they're really good with this. And I'll tell you if the Giants are top heavy right now. They've got 1, 2, 3 guys that have cap numbers. No, I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 guys who have a cap number of at least 10 million.
Well, that's Daniel Jones. That's Dexter Lawrence. That's Andrew
Daniel
Thomas.
Jones is 47.1.
Darren Waller.
Andrew is 23.6. Dexter's 22. Darren Waller is 14. Bobby Okereke is 11.02.
But
folks, that's cap heavy.
I think by season start, though, the Andrew Thomas and Dexter
and Dexter, I could see maybe getting their numbers knocked
lower.
down.
I think
Waller's an interesting. Let's talk about Waller for a second here, because Waller, 14.03 cap number. Of that, he's got a 10.525 base, prorated bonus 2.458, and if they cut him, let me see if they were to cut him, they'll save 6.7. But get a 7.3 dead money hit. What do you guys do with Waller, do you think? You don't want to touch that contract, and I don't think you want to touch that contract. And I understand why they do it.
If I'm saying there's 2 contracts I quote unquote backlog, I don't even view it as a big backlog because of how long Andrew Thomas's contract is. Like we talked about with how much the cap's going up, if you push back $15 million of that over the course of 5 years, that's not killing you. So I'm moving that money, and I'm moving Dexter's money a bit. Not as much as Thomas, because Dexter's 27 and his contract's not as long. But those are the 2 contracts that I'm maneuvering the money backwards. Darren Waller, I'm not touching the contract. Daniel Jones, I'm not touching the contract. They're staying as is. I'm keeping Waller for another year, because even though the guy couldn't stay on the field last year, and he probably won't stay on the field next year. It's still, for me at least, the reward of cutting him isn't enough.
I agree.
You save about $7 million, but in today's market, what impact player are you going to get for $7 million? And when he's on the field, still a good player, especially if you get a high-end wide receiver in this year's draft. I would keep Waller for this year. The following year, when I could save $10 million, and he's going to be 32, bye-bye. But I keep Waller for 1 more year. And another thing we didn't talk about, Patty, I think something the New York Giants need to do, and I want to get your opinion on this. They need to extend, not cut, extend Darius Slayton.
They go.
And they go. Because if you cut Darius Slayton, you save $6.25 million. And a lot of people have said that. But if I'm the Giants, I say, this is a guy who wants to be here. This is a guy who's been consistent. The drop problems have gotten better. He loves playing with Daniel Jones. He loves playing with this organization. he's worked with us in the past. Remember 2 years ago, he took a huge pay cut to remain on with the New York Giants. I go to Slate and I say 3 years, $27 million, 3 years, 20, whatever it may be, but let's lower that cap number from $8 million this year to 4 or 5 to give ourselves a little bit more maneuverability. You give yourself some more security. That's what I would do with Darius Slayton.
And you know what? Shane actually talked on that Sirius XM radio interview that he did. He actually mentioned Slayton because he said that's a guy that a lot of people forget about. And he spoke very highly of Slayton. So I could see that happening too. Matter of fact, I saw, I think Richard Carter asked about, let me just pop this on the screen real quick. How much the Giants potentially have after cuts and see how much it would add up for Saquon. Richard, I did an article like that over on Giants Country. If you want to take it out, check it out. It's just easier to read it than for me to go through the numbers because there's little nuances that I explain in that article, but it is over on Giants Country. Slayton was the guy that I said they should definitely look to extend. I wouldn't extend him 5 years, but tack on another 2 years, maybe make one of the years avoidable year. Yeah. Absolutely. I'd have no problem with that.
And it frees up $4 or maybe $5 million on this year's cap. The way that
absolutely. That's the other move.
Yeah. And then you look at this wide receiving core all of a sudden for something that was, and granted, I'm not going to get excited about the wide receiving core until we see this line get a lot better because it's irrelevant until the line gets better. But you look at this young wide receiving core with the potential there. Darius Slayton's still only 26. Wan'Dale, I don't think a lot of people realize, guys, Wan'Dale had 60 catches last year, and he started the year banged up. He clearly started to become himself over the last 3, 4, 5 games last year. I think Wan'Dale's got a lot of potential. If you add a guy like Neighbors to this core with Jalen Hyatt and his potential, and then you got a guy like this could be a really nice, young, up-and-coming receiving core. If you had a guy like Neighbors, you keep Slayton. Wan'Dale's one of my favorite players on the team, by the way. Everybody poo-pooed that pick when Shane made it. I think that guy's going to be a very good wide receiver for this football team.
Absolutely.
Quickly becoming one of my favorite Giants.
And this receiver group is not that bad.
Yeah.
But you add a number one receiver, and now they suddenly go from being not that bad to maybe being borderline elite if you get the right guy in there.
Yeah, number one wide receiver changes everything.
Absolutely. And Waller ain't the number one receiver. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Good guy to have around. But that experiment, that hope to make him the number one receiver, that de facto number one receiver, didn't work. Didn't work. I would not go back to that well again. I'd keep him, like you said, because the savings doesn't add up. It makes more sense to get rid of him after this year. This 2024 season.
Yeah.
But yeah, and by the way, you can also defer if you want to on tight end because tight end's in need, because right now I don't think they bring Cager back. They have Bellinger who will be on the roster, Waller who will be on the roster. Maybe you want to add another tight end, whether it be a veteran or that's low cost or a developmental guy. I don't know, but tight end is probably not as high on the totem pole as wide receiver, I would think.
Yeah, I agree. You get value at that position too, right? Where did Laporta was a second round pick this year, but you could get good value at that position too. I don't see us spending a high pick on a tight end. There's too many other needs this team has.
As much as Brock Bowers, I know appeals to a lot of people. I just don't think they're going to go.
No, I'd be surprised.
That can happen there. He might go to Los Angeles though. They might take him at 5.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Maybe him as the next Kellen Winslow, if you're assuming you're talking to the Chargers here, right?
Yes.
Knowing Harbaugh, though, and I haven't seen a lot of people mock them to do this, and I agree with you. If I was doing a mock today, I would have Bowers going to the Chargers. He's clearly a big line guy, right? You think about how they built that Michigan program. I wouldn't be surprised if he took Joe Alt. I could see that being a possibility, too, for the Chargers.
Sure.
Yeah. But, that's how they won.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Harbaugh's a little in the sauce, thinking McCarthy's going to be the number one overall pick. But
he's just talking up his guy. He's talking up his guy.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys, start putting your questions into the box. We'll start getting to them. Guys, let me ask you though about Thibodeau. And he finished strong. He had double-digit sacks, but the consistency. What did you think of the consistency in his game, and what does he need to do to take his game to the next level? Do you think having a bona fide, legitimate partner on the opposite end which right now I don't think it's going to be Ojulari because he can't stay healthy for whatever the reason. How much do you think that will help him? And do you think, Thibodeau what can he do to make his game more consistent, I guess?
Two things that I think are going to benefit Tibbs this year, my prediction. And I don't know if he's going to match his sack total. People, if you're just looking at the stats, you're like, wow, Tibbs had a great year. He had like 13 and a half sacks, I think he had, or something like that. But I don't think Tibbs had a great year last year. I think he had a pretty good year.
It's up and down here.
Yeah, he was up and down. He wasn't consistent. He didn't take over games to the extent that I thought he would going into his sophomore year. I think the two things that are going to benefit Kayvon Thibodeau this next year, one, like I've talked about, like we've talked about throughout the show, I do think they're going to add an edge rusher in free agency. I do. I think they're going to get a guy opposite him. Two, getting rid of Wink Martindale. And I'm not killing Wink Martindale. I think Wink Martindale did a pretty good job with the Giants, but he didn't do Kayvon Thibodeau a lot of favors. He dropped him back in coverage a lot. I think you need to find a defensive coordinator like we did with Dex and say, this is what you're best at. We're going to do this with you. I think you got to do that with Kayvon. You didn't bring Kayvon here to drop him back in coverage as much as they did last year. Put his hand in the dirt. Get him after the quarterback. And I think if you change that strategy with Kayvon, you'll see him be more consistent. You'll see him start to take over games. So I think those two changes, you get a better edge rusher and you use him more at what he's best at, and that's taking quarterbacks' heads off. I think Kayvon will take a bigger jump, maybe not statistically, but from a consistency standpoint, from a guy that disrupts game plans on the other side. I think that's what I'm looking at next year for Kayvon. I do. I think getting rid of Wink is actually going to benefit him.
I agree. Definitely. All right, let's get some of these questions here. James Vegas asks, if the Giants part with Barkley, do they go for running back in late round 2 or 3? I'm thinking more day 3 than round 3. If you follow, again, we talked about this earlier. Isaiah Pacheco was a 7th rounder. When Joe Schoen was in Buffalo, what was it? Singleton? Devin, what was the
Devin Singletary.
He was a day 3 pick?
I think so.
Yeah, I don't think the Giants go that high, late round 2, round 3. I just don't see it. We mentioned that this is a passing league, and the Giants, I think, are going to go for a running back by committee approach, which is another thing. Even if they keep Saquon, I could see them going with a committee approach to maybe keep him healthy. They started to do that last year when they took him off of 3rd down and they took him off of pass pro. So I could see that continuing, which is yet another reason why you don't want to pay Saquon a ton of money if you're going to, reduce his snaps to keep him healthy. So just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, and this year, even if they weren't the draft running back, if they brought Barkley back, I think he'd have a less of a snap count, because last year you're probably not going to trust Gray too much in terms of pass protection. Usually rookies struggle with that. So this year he would get more of a role, I would feel. So yeah, no matter what they do at the running back spot, if they keep Barkley, I think he'll get a little bit less of the load this next year. But I agree with you. Whether Barkley stays or whether he doesn't, I don't want the Giants to take a running back in the 2nd or 3rd round. I just feel if there's any position on a football team that you could get incredible value at, it's that one. Make your money on day 3 with running backs. You could get good running backs in day 3.
Yeah, definitely. All right, this is a good one from Maximus 1318. Can you imagine T Sweat with Dex? Oh man, you talk about a load. Wow. Oh my goodness, that would be quite the load. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind that. And I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't mind that for sure. All right, Neymar Saquon, do you think we should have a defensive coordinator soon, or do you think promote Jerome Henderson? Neymar, I've been checking my phone in between, during this podcast, because I'm expecting the news to come out any minute now. I don't know if it'll be tonight. It may be tomorrow, over the weekend. I'm not sure, but I know that it's coming soon, so I'm keeping an eye on that. We talked about this earlier in the pod. Henderson can make sense at this point. I think, if they want to wrap this up, that would be the way to go. So I would not rule him out. I know a lot of people are like, oh, they just gave Henderson a courtesy interview. I don't think that's what they did. I really don't. So, okay. Max Custom Kicks asks about the chief linebackers coach, Brendan Daly. again, it depends on the timing. Now, Joe Schoen in his Sirius XM interview that he did this week at the Senior Bowl said there is no rush, and Chris or Tainah said earlier in the pod that Wink wasn't hired until February 11th, and today's only February 2nd. So there's no rush per se, but the sense I got was that they wanted Denard Wilson, and for reasons we discussed earlier in the show, obviously it didn't work out. So you just wonder if Henderson maybe moved up the chain in terms of, the consideration. So never say never. But
The longer, here's what I'll say. I think if they're going to hire Henderson, it'll be within the next 3 or 4 days. If this continues to drag out, I think the likelihood of them going somewhere else is higher because they could be waiting for the Chiefs to finish the Super Bowl to hire. So I think it's going to get done soon because I think Henderson's going to get the job. I think this will be done within the next 3 or 4 days. I think Henderson's going to be the DC.
Yeah. All right. I want to acknowledge this question from H5000. If DJ gets hurt in the 14th game in 2024 and tears his Achilles, how does it affect his injury guarantees in 2025, if at all? H5000, pop that one in the comments section because I got to go back and I got to look at the contract. I don't have the contract in front of me, so I got to see how it's worded. So I don't want to give you the wrong information right now. I don't want to go off the top of my head and be incorrect. So just pop that in the comments section. And I will address it when I go through the comments this weekend. All right, let's see what we've got here. I know somebody. Oh, here we go. This is a good one. We didn't talk about Isaiah Simmons. Let's talk about this. Jonathan Chris asked, "Do you see us bringing back Isaiah Simmons? What do you think about that, guys?" I think so.
I like him. I hope so.
I hope so too. Do you like the way he was used in this defense, or do you think that maybe a new defensive coordinator can get more out of him using him a different way?
I think I like the role that as the year went along. Yeah, I do like the way that he was used. At first, I did not, but I think he was getting accustomed to the playbook. I think he's a nice rotational player, and if he's willing to come back here for an affordable price, which I would assume he would, but I think that all that's going to depend on the defensive coordinator, whoever they hire. How does he see him fitting in his defense? I think a big reason why we brought him in the first place is because Wink thought he would fit his scheme very well. He's a unique type of player. So he's not a guy that's going to fit in every single defense perfectly. So I think a lot of that depends on the DC, but I'd like to have him back. I think he's a nice piece for this defense.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. Dog, what do you think?
I love Isaiah Simmons. I thought that, I don't know. It's so he's still young. Was he 25, 26? He obviously has a world of talent, but he's a guy without a position. And I guess it's hard to figure out exactly what he would be, especially with the new defensive coordinator. I would like Isaiah Simmons to have like an actual role. Personally, I think Isaiah Simmons, and again, I mean, he's a good coverage linebacker. I mean, he was a safety at Clemson, but I would love to see him on pass rush down, just go after the quarterback. Like, I would just like to see him just be a pass rusher, whether you line him up in different places and have him come from all over the place, like a rover or whatever. I would like to see Isaiah Simmons really just keying on the quarterback because I feel like he's quick enough, athletic enough to get there, especially if he's like the extra guy that they brought. But I would like to see him have a more prominent role on defense. I just don't know what exactly that would be, but that's what the defense.
You think he's a starter? Do you think he's someone?
I don't think he's a starter.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I think he has potential to be, but that's why you can afford him because he's not a starter and he's not going to cost you a ton of money. But there is a lot of potential there, and that's a guy that's going to be low risk, high reward if you can figure out what to do with him and he can excel. If he just had one thing to do, I mean, Carl Banks talked about it. Like he has a lot of things going through his head, and he doesn't really. It's like he thinks too much, so he hesitates instead of just going. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
he's just got to make up his mind. This is what I'm doing and do it instead of worrying about everything else. So I would love Isaiah Simmons to come back here.
Yeah,
but, especially they added a serious edge rusher. I think he could be really good. Well,
absolutely. They've got to get an edge rusher in here. I mean, I've been screaming about that now for 2 years?
Yeah.
And they haven't done it. I mean,
I think this is the offseason they do it. I really do. I think they're going to.
I think so too.
I don't know if it'll be top of the market, but I think they're going to sign an edge for sure.
Absolutely. All right. Let's see. We've got one from Richard Carter. Why haven't they given the job to Patterson or Henderson? Patterson did an interview, and you've got to remember something with Patterson. He had some health issues the last couple of years. So maybe the thought process there is maybe he doesn't want the job because of the health. Because remember, a defensive coordinator job is a whole different animal than just being a position line coach.
Yeah.
And why haven't they given the job yet? They're doing due diligence. This is a big hire, folks. It's not just, let's give it to Rome Henderson because we know him. This is a huge, huge hire. So you just can't just say, boom, let's hand the job off. So, I'm fine with the time that they're taking with this, because this is an important hire. Offensive line, defensive coordinator, special teams. Those were the top three. Oh, and strength and conditioning. You can throw that in there. But if you're ranking them, I think you put DC, O-line, strength and conditioning,
Special teams.
Yeah. So that's how I would rank them. All right. Jonathan, Chris, what do you think about Kafka coming back? I've got no problem with him coming back. I mean,
I have no problem with it. I was hoping he didn't, only because of the draft pick situation that
I didn't know that. That was new to me. I gotta admit, I did not know that.
But no, I'm completely fine with that. I think eventually, if Dable's going to be here long term, eventually he's going to take over as the play caller. But I'm of the belief Jones is going to be the quarterback next year. So if it was going to be a rookie, I probably would have, when I say rookie, I mean like a high first round draft pick. I would have probably wanted them to move on from Kafka, because I wouldn't have wanted a different OC year two if Kafka were to do a good job and move on. Like, I don't like that. We saw what happened with Daniel Jones with that. But if they do what I think they're going to do, I have no problem with Kafka coming back for another year at all. He did a fine job. He didn't have much to work with. The offense looked like it was starting to get better over the course of the year. So, yeah, I'm fine with Kafka.
Yeah, I am too. But I do think you're right that if they bring in a rookie quarterback, they're going to probably have Dable more involved with that, with that guy, I would think, with the play calling. Richard Carter says, I don't know. We hired a first-time GM, head coach, and OC, and now they hesitate on the DC. Richard, sometimes you just know. Do you remember back in 2007, they hired Spagnuolo, who had never been a DC at the NFL level? How'd he work out? So I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Well, it's not like there, and also it's not like there wasn't a process with that. We brought in like 7 guys for that GM job.
Yeah.
We brought in the dude from the 49ers. We brought in like 2 guys from Tennessee, if I recall. We brought in like 7 guys for that GM job. And even the head coaching thing, even after we knew that Shane and Dable were kind of a pair, they brought in Flores. They brought in like 5, 6 head coaching. It wasn't like we just rushed that,
Yep. All right. So let's see. Maximus 1318. Do they let Adoree walk? Isn't he a free agent also? Adoree has an avoidable year this year. So yeah, he's probably going to walk.
You have
good indication that he's not going to be back. They didn't touch his contract to create cap space.
You have to let him walk. No offense to Adoree. He's older. Yeah. I'm not giving him, 12, 13, 14 million.
Yeah. He's going to. Yeah,
we drafted Deonte Banks last year, knowing that
he's your new CB1.
Yeah,
you're not going to pay Adoree more than your new CB1, who right now you've got on a rookie contract. So yeah, that's I don't see that happening. All right, listen, guys, keep popping your questions into the chat box. I got to run one more set of commercials, so don't go anywhere, and then we'll continue answering your questions as we close out the show. Hey, Giant fans. LinkedIn Jobs knows that your small business's success all depends on the team that you surround yourself with. That's why LinkedIn Jobs has created the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. They have a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It's so easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours of posting a job. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So don't spend time sorting through endless resumes and dead-end leads in your search for the right candidates. Put LinkedIn Jobs to work for you today for free by visiting linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. Terms and conditions apply. Hey, Giant fans. So I've got a confession to make. There are some days when I just get so incredibly busy that I just don't have time to cook or run out to a local eatery for a takeout. Thanks to DoorDash, I don't have to. DoorDash brings me everything I want, whether it's from a local eatery or a national chain. I've even used DoorDash to get incidentals delivered from pharmacies and local convenience stores. And when I'm really in a pinch, even groceries. DoorDash is fast, easy, and convenient. Just download their app, find the establishment from which you want to order, and select the menu options. You'll get what you ordered, or they'll make it right. And right now, new customers can get 50% off up to a $10 value on their first order of $15 or more when they download the app and enter the promo code LOCKED23. Give DoorDash a try today and see just how easy it is to get what you want when you want it. That promo code again for 50% off up to $10 on any order of $15 or more is LOCKED23. Offer subject to change. Terms apply. All right, everybody, welcome back to Locked On Giants Live. You got Traina, Tainah, Dog, or what some of you call the dream team. Always good to be with Tainah and Doug. Guys, we haven't talked food yet. I'm shocked.
I
We're
know.
like an
No
hour
food
and
as of yet.
we haven't talked food.
Super Bowl coming. There's a lot of food in the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah. I mean, Super Bowl spreads and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't know about you, but this weekend, I'm really psyched. I'm going to a new Mexican restaurant this weekend. I can't wait to try out.
My top
It's
three.
supposedly an authentic place. So I've got a fun, that'll be my date night with my husband. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, also before I forget, I want to I know I saw some of my Blue Crew community members on the chat. So I want to send a shout out to them. You guys are getting a video tomorrow, and we're going to do the first ever voice videos. So those of you who submitted questions via the voice system that we set up, I can't wait to try this out. I hope you guys are going to like it. That's going to be my Blue Crew community members, and that video will be up. I'll get that up probably by noon tomorrow. So check that out.
Awesome.
All right. Let's see what we've got with questions here.
We got some good questions.
Okay,
I was looking at them while you were doing the commercial. We got some good
yeah,
questions.
let's see. Okay, here's a good one. Matt Garris asks, what's the top defensive position you are looking at in the draft? Ooh, I'm going to say interior defensive line. There's a lot of good defensive line talent in this draft class, and they need depth, because look, A'Shawn Robinson's going to be, he's got 3 voidable years actually, so he's not coming back. Raheem Nunez-Roches,
he's a depth guy
in the contract, but I'm not crazy about what he delivered the first year. Then you've got DJ Davidson, who's still wet behind the ears. Jordan Riley, who came on, I think, but I'd like to see them add to that group. Especially if you consider. Look, I think the new defensive coordinator, and I could be wrong here, but if the new defensive coordinator wants to go with a 3-man front as opposed to the 2-man front that Wink liked to run a lot, you got to get another defensive lineman in here, I would think.
Yeah, that's definitely. And again, better to answer these questions after free agency when we see what they do. Like, we're anticipating they're going to go edge at free agency, but if they don't, I'd want edge too. So, but I agree. I think interior defensive line, and I think cornerback too is. Now we don't know. How do they feel about Cordell Flott? After all, they did draft him in the 3rd round 2 years ago. Do they think he could continue to progress and maybe become a cornerback too? Trey Hawkins, but I do think you need to add more depth in that cornerback room as well. So I would go defense, anticipating that they're going to go edge in free agency, which I think they will. Cornerback and the interior defensive line, like you said, that's where my
free agency. You're saying?
No, in the draft.
For the draft, okay.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say free agency. I think edge rushers were. I would go edge because, look, if you're going to, not that they would go and arrange their draft board according to position. It's always best player, but I've gotten mixed opinions on how good the edge rusher class is. And
you got that one good dude, and I saw somebody in the chat mention him. I think it's pronounced Verse. I've watched him. Clips of him. He's really good, but we're not taking him. He's going to be a top 10 pick, and we're not taking him at 6. But yeah, from what I've heard overall, that's why I think we're doing it in free agency, because I'm taking that into account when I say that. It's not a super rich class for the edge rusher in the draft.
There was a question here. Let's see it from Maximus 1318. about trading down and possibly drafting Jared Verse. If you're talking first round, I don't know. I would go receiver. I mean, look, it's a deep receiver class, but I think there's going to be a run on receivers. Get the number one receiver in here. Let's stop playing around here.
I'm always a big believer in drafting towards the strength of the draft, especially if it fills a need for your team. And at the top of the draft, the two biggest strengths are the quarterback and the wide receiver. And anticipating that the quarterbacks are going to be gone, knowing that the wide receiver is in need of ours, it's one of the 4 or 5 most important positions. That's what I think they're going to do. And Shane has shown you his first. Look at what he's drafted in the first round. His first 2 years as a general manager: tackle, edge, corner. He's going to draft for the most important positions. He takes positional value into account. He said that when he took the job. I think wide receiver is the pick. Unless we trade up, I think wide receiver is the pick.
I definitely agree. I want to address this question from Jim McKinney. 3 years in on a team that sucks. Why do we have no cap space still? Jim, that's got to be the most, that's the biggest misconception I see from fans. All right. Looking at over the cap right now, you've got, let's see, the Packers, the 49ers, the Seahawks, the Steelers, the Browns, the Cowboys, the Broncos, Chargers, Bills, Dolphins, Saints, all in the red. The Giants have total 21.847 total space, 14 million effective space.
I did a video on this. We have a very healthy cap situation. I'm going to tell you why, Jim. I'm going to tell you why the cap looks the way it does, because a lot of people after we signed Jones and Barkley were like, "Oh, we got 60 million. We're going to be able to sign all these guys." They extended Andrew Thomas last year. They extended Dexter Lawrence last year. That goes against your cap. But by doing that, how long those deals are, you have so much flexibility with those deals. You could spread that money out appropriately how you see fit. And I think that's exactly what they're going to do. I think they're going to create $15 to $20 million in cap space just by spreading those two contracts out.
Gone.
Mark Lewinsky's going to be gone. You're going to save another 5.5 there. After draft expenses, here's my prediction, Patty. We're going to have $45 to $50 million to spend in free agency when they do some of the things that I think that they're going to do.
And to your point, Tainah, this is why when I see people tweet, "Oh, next year, and let me just see, next year, in 2025, the Giants are going to have, what are they projected to have? They're going to have $95 million in cap space." Why are you getting excited about that now?
You have two draft classes coming in. The money goes fast. You're going to backload salaries this year.
It's going to go down. So,
but you never want to have.
We're going to have next year, and then all of a sudden that money drops, and it's like, "Oh God, we have no cap space." That's why I tell people, don't worry about what you're going to have in 2025 or 2026. The numbers are going to change. The cap space is fluid. But to sit there and say that the Giants have no cap space when I just read off the list of teams who are right now are in the red and got to scramble to get under the cap, come on, guys. That's how it works. I mean,
and you never want to have the most cap space. If you have the most cap space, it means you have nobody on your team worth keeping.
Right. And there's also, you have to spend a certain percentage of the cap every year. I forget what the percentage is.
Yeah, but would you rather have $80 million in cap space and not have Andrew Thomas and Dexter Lawrence?
Exactly.
Or, you know what I'm saying? So like the teams that have all that money, it's because they have nobody worth extending. Like you want to have a good amount, you want balance, but you want to use your cap space, in my opinion at least, for the most part, to retain the players that you drafted well.
Exactly.
And I think Shane is adopting that strategy, obviously.
Absolutely. You don't want to, people say, "Oh, they need the cap space so they can go out and sign 50 million people." Didn't Dave Gettleman sign 50 million free agents? And what did that get him?
The Jets have been doing it for years. Doesn't work.
Right. The Jets have been doing it. The other teams have been doing it. Dallas has a mess on their hands.
Yeah.
They're going to have to restructure, and people are going to look at their cap space and say, "Oh, Dallas has all this cap space." The Eagles the same way. No, when you have to start shuffling money around and restructuring and all this stuff, that's where you get into trouble. So it might look like you've got cap space, but you really don't, because you've mortgaged your future. So the Giants cap situation, is it going to get better? Yes. Glowinski's going to get cut. And I did an article. I forget exactly. I'd have to go back and look at the article. I did this on Giants Country. There's other ways they can get cap space. We talked about maybe restructuring or extending, extending, Andrew Thomas, who, let me just pull up his contract real quick because there's
I'll
something.
tell you, because I know it. It's 20. It's almost 24 against the cap this year. Then it's
No,
20,
but
20.
there's an element. Okay, so Andrew Thomas is under contract, let me see, through 2029. If you go to Over the Cap and you look at his prorated bonus, he's got big old goose eggs in
The
those
last
in
2 years.
2028 and 2029. That's because with a prorated signing bonus, you can only spread it out over 5 years. So if a guy gets a 7-year contract, you can only spread the prorated bonus over 5. So it makes sense for the Giants to push money down into those last 2 years, even if Thomas is even on the roster. So that's how that works.
That's what they're going to do.
That's exactly what they're going to do. And I think it's the same thing. Let me check with Dexter. I think it's the same.
It's not the same. It's not quite the same. But there's still room with Dex where I think they could move $6-7 million around.
All right. Dexter's got a $2.5 million roster bonus in the final year of that deal. So let's say they have to trim some money off and they say, oh, Dexter's not going to be on the roster in 2027. Well, you just put in the 2.5 million and you bring that down to the 2027 cap year. So it's doable. There are things they can do to clear up more space, and they will, but I think they'll do it as they need it. I don't think they'll go, and sit there and say, oh my God, we got to make all these moves right now.
Oh, they're going to do it. They're going to do it with the players that they know are the long-term pieces, like Andrew Thomas. They'll spread the money out accordingly, and he's going to have more than enough money to build this team in free agency this year. But
yes, he does.
But he's also
going to go crazy though.
He's not going to go crazy. He's going to find. I think he's going to have 2 impact moves in free agency. Like when I say impact, I mean like a Bobby Okereke like move. I see 2 moves like that this offseason. One at the edge, maybe one at the guard or the tackle on the line. Something like that. That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, get an offensive lineman here because that's a young group, and we saw how well having Justin Pugh on the roster settled that line down. I don't think Justin comes back, but if you could get a veteran to come in and help settle that line, I would do it in a heartbeat. I would get an edge rusher, and then I would use the draft to fill in the rest of. Oh, and then obviously a backup quarterback. And then
for sure they're going to spend some money there. I think.
Yeah.
They also might sign a decent cornerback. I could see that. I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah.
Like a younger, decent quarterback, not a Dory, like a 26-year-old. I haven't looked at the list, but I could see that.
By the way, I want to send a shout out to Maximus13, who I hope is still on the chat. He says, it's nice to not have to think about my dying dog for a little while. It's Maximus, as a one-time dog mom, and hopefully we'll have another dog soon. My heart goes out to you. That is just the worst when your dog is getting up there and they're sick and you just can't do anything for it. So I feel for you, my friend, and I wish you the best with your dog. So I just wanted to put that out there because, dogs are the best, in my opinion. They just are. And I can't wait to get my next one, hopefully soon, if I can talk my husband into it.
You always got a dog right here, Patty, and the bad dog.
That's right. I got bad dog.
Right.
Yeah, but the problem is, bad dog, is you're not here to where I can stick my feet underneath your belly, and like I used to do with mine.
I'm housebroken though, so we're good there. You ain't gonna worry about that. I'm housebroken. So
my dog, when she was here, she used to like to come into my office, which was fine. She was so funny. She'd stick her head in my office and she'd like grunt, and I'd be like, "Come on in, Molly." She'd come in and she'd go right underneath my desk. And I would stick my feet underneath her belly, and she would keep my feet warm because I always like to sit at my desk without socks and shoes on. And she would just sit there. And sometimes I'd have to twist my body like crazy, like this because of the way she positioned herself. But I could never yell at her. My dog's name was Molly, Richard. She passed away a couple of years ago. She was 17 and a half. My poor baby got sick and also old age, but she was a rescue dog, and we adopted her she was about 3.5 when we got her. And she left us, like I said, when she was about 17 and a half, just shy of her 18th birthday. And she was just, she had stopped eating. She was sick.
That's a long life for a dog. That's about 130 in doggy years. That's
we
long.
Spoiled the hell out of her, and it was worth it. It was worth it. That dog, when I had her when I was going through my cancer treatments, and she was so protective of me. Like if I didn't move, she would kind of like nudge against my feet to make sure I was still alive. It was actually quite sweet. So that was my buddy. And for the longest time, and I still miss her. And I still, I have a Petsy of her. Let me show you. I'll show you what I got. You guys are going to think I'm crazy, but I got this Petsy. Let me see. This is what
That's
she
awesome.
kind of looked like. So they
Yeah.
actually, took a picture. I sent a picture to this company. They're called Petsies, and they make dogs that look like, now this isn't an exact replica of what she looked like, but this color is the correct, the shading, the little floppy ears and everything like that. So I got this kind of as for closure, and I have it off to the side here. And I named the Petsy, obviously. I named it Molly because that was my dog's name. And, so like hopefully I get another one. I want a Labradoodle or a smaller dog that I can put on my lap. So
Labradoodles aren't that small.
it depends.
At least the ones I've seen. Yeah.
It depends.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's the story of my baby.
There's nothing better than dogs. That's the moral of the story.
They're awesome.
Yeah,
I used to call her a mooch. She was a mooch because it's like she always wanted what I was eating. It was so funny. She would be like, "What are you eating, Ma?" And I'm like, if it was something I could give her, I would. And if it was something that wasn't good for her, I'd be like, "No, honey, you can't have it." And she would just give me this sad look, and I'd be like, "All right, I'll go get you your chicken," or so I'd get her something she could eat. But that dog it was like who was who, But anyway, all right, let me see. Somebody asked, I saw a question. Xavier Anderson, who do you see as trading this offseason? Xavier, the only potential trade I could see is a tag and trade for Saquon if the deal can't be worked out. Would they consider trading somebody else like they did, with Leonard Williams? They might wait on that. But I can't think of anybody else that off the top of my head.
I don't see
think
anything.
there is.
You're not trading Dex, obviously. You're not trading Thomas. Jones is untradeable with his contract.
Yeah.
I don't really see any tradable pieces on this team outside of a potential tag and trade with Barkley. I don't see that. No.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So, all right, let's see what else we've got. We've got a few more minutes. We'll do that. Oh, here's a good one. Let's see. Christian Kalor, what are your overall final thoughts on the quarterbacks that could drop to round 2? Example, Penix and Bo Nix.
Of those two, and I agree, I don't think McCarthy's going around 2 just because of his age and upside. That's just my personal opinion. Some people differ. I could at least see those two going at round 2. I like Penix more than Bo Nix. I will be fair. I think Bo Nix is getting a little bit more hate than he should at this point on social media. Like, I think Giants fans are just pounding on him to the point where it's a little unfair. I do think he's better than some people are making him out to be. But I like Penix more. I definitely like Penix more than Bo Nix. I think Penix has a really good arm. He has a really good arm. My biggest worry with him is I won't even bring up the injuries. He's not
protecting his blind side.
That, and he's not, even though I do think his mobility is a bit underrated by some, I don't think he's a statue. He lacks mobility for the modern day NFL quarterback. That's a worry, especially with our offensive line. So, but I think Penix, of those two, I would prefer Penix. But I view both of them as
way over Bo Nix. That's not even a question.
Yeah.
The arm talent alone is unbelievable. I mean, I've liked Michael Penix for years. So this is nothing new.
We're gonna on the upcoming shows. I'm gonna have, like I said, the Locked On College hosts that cover these quarterbacks. So during this for their schools, they're gonna come on and they're gonna give us some lowdown. So you'll want to check that. I know on Monday I've got Jaden Daniels. So Locked On LSU's Caroline Fenton came on. She was great. She gave me a lot of good insight on Jaden Daniels. I've already had Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On Ducks. So, you guys, if you're interested in the quarterbacks, keep it, subscribe, like the channel, ring the little notification bell. So this way, when I have a new video up and you can check out what the topic is, because that's what I'm focusing on, because I know there's a lot of questions about quarterbacks. So let's do that. All right. I just saw a question that I wanted to add. We'll take a few more because I know it's getting late here. Let me see. Somebody, who was it? Oh, here it was. Giant Man 702. Just want to send a shout out. Hope your wife gets better. He said that he was sitting in the hospital with his sick wife. So sending out good wishes to you, Giant Man 702. and to your wife. Hopefully she makes a speedy recovery.
Yeah,
Let me see. Hate Sam asks, could you see us signing both Josh Allen and Awanu? According to Spot Rack, that would be $38 million between the two of them. Sam, I wouldn't go by Spot Rack's projections, because there are vehicles and things that the Giants can do to make these contracts fit. And it all depends on if the player is receptive to these ideas. Like you can have roster bonuses, you could have voidable years, not likely to be earned incentives. So, could they do both? Maybe, but I don't think Josh Allen, I think he gets franchise tagged. I really do. I don't think he hits the market.
I like the idea of fantasizing about it because that would be awesome. But
That would be awesome. Exactly.
I think he's going to be tagged. But I do think the Giants are going to be fairly aggressive in free agency because Daboll's on the hot seat. We may not want to talk about it, and we may not want to acknowledge it because I want Daboll to get at least 4 years. But it's hard to keep a job in the NFL if your team is really bad 2 years straight.
Yeah.
And if Daboll's on the hot seat, I don't think Shane is. I do think Shane will get 4 years no matter what. But it's not a good look for Shane if Daboll gets fired after 3 years. That was his guy. So
Yeah.
I think the Giants are going to try to win as many games as they can next year. Within reason, I think they're going to be aggressive in free agency. I think they're going to try their best to improve this team as much as they can.
They have
do.
to.
You
They
know?
have to. I mean,
like if you're of the belief that no way they'd fire Daboll, just look at Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel 2 years ago was thought to be one of the best coaches in the NFL. The team underachieves 2 years straight. He's out of a job. It can happen fast in the NFL. And I think Shane and Daboll are going to recognize that. That's why I think they're going to they're going to be aggressive. I do. I think they're going to sign a couple of pretty good players in free agency. I really believe that.
Yeah, I agree. Kalen Chabal, I hope I said that right. You think D coordinators are turned off by Daboll's temper? No. Quite honestly, guys, look, that story is just so overblown. And, I finally found a use for that Spider-Man dueling, the two Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
I never understood what that meme was for. Now I understand what it was for. So I finally found a use for that, the tabloid wars. So no, I mean, look, yes, Daboll has a temper, but if you're going to be sensitive to that, come on. I question if some of the sources about Daboll were ex-employees.
Nobody talked about Daboll's temper last year, and he was just as demonstrative on the sideline.
Exactly.
It was just more frequent this year because the team didn't do as well. But bottom line is, if the team wins, nobody talks about that.
That's exactly what Wink Martindale said. He said this happened last year, but you don't talk about it when you're 8-4. But when you're 4-8, these things come out.
That's just and every team fights, and every coaching staff, I'm sure, has fights from within inside the confines of the building. So no, like listen. At the end of the day, I think Daboll's still a good coach, but he's got to find guys that he works better with. Obviously, him and Wink didn't work well together. That's okay. You learn. Tom Coughlin learned. How long was Tom Coughlin a head coach throughout his career in the NFL before he even came to the Giants? Obviously, with the Jaguars, he had a great success there. His first 2-3 years here, he was struggling. He had to adjust. I think Daboll's got to adjust too, and I think he will. I think he's a smart guy. I think he will adjust.
I think so too. And the other thing is, if the reports were true and Wink was doing stuff because he felt like he didn't have to answer to Daboll, you can't do that and get away with that. I mean, Daboll's the head coach.
Yeah.
So if Daboll was popping off at him because Wink was being insubordinate, do you blame him?
No.
Come
on. If I was Wink, I'd fire Wink too. I mean, I'm sorry. If I was Daboll, I'd fire Wink too.
Right. And as Matt Garris just said, he said it's telling that Wink Martindale doesn't have a job through the coaching changes.
He got one interview.
He got one interview.
All right.
So whose reputation really got hurt? Meanwhile, Daboll got a new offensive line coach. He got a new special teams coach who should be really good. He got Aaron Willman back, which I'm thrilled. I think that's one of the underrated hires. They're still figuring out the defensive coordinator role. So Daboll's moving on.
Yeah.
People are coming in wanting to work for him.
Yeah. I think Dable will be fine. I think we'll have a nice bounce back year this year. I do. I think we're going to win at least 9 games. I think we'll be a solid team this year, and we'll start to right the ship. Maybe I'm being too optimistic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to just quick acknowledge Barry, who just signed on, because we're winding down here. Barry, first off, welcome to the live chat. Barkley, if they don't get a deal done, he's going to get the tag. He's not walking. So, let me just put that out there again for those who might have come in late. Barkley is not walking away. He will get the tag if a deal doesn't get done. We talked about this earlier. We said that there is a very good possibility, given the change that he made in his agency representation, that maybe a deal gets done. It's not going to be a huge payday, but I think something can get done. I feel better about it now than I did maybe this time last year.
I will say, when I heard the report that he changed agencies this far before the tag deadline, I said, all right, they might get something worked out here, because I was of the belief that it wasn't going to happen, but I'm starting to lean more towards you. I do think they'll get some. I hope at least that they get something done, because Barkley's important to this franchise, whether people want to admit it or not. He's the face of the team. He's so well respected in that locker room, but you also have to be prudent if you're the general manager. You can't give him the deal that he was demanding last offseason. So I hope they come to a common agreement, because I love Saquon.
I do too. I think they will. I would be really surprised if they don't, but you never know. You never know. So anyway, guys, I've been checking the phone, no news. So I think now that it's like 10:06 Eastern time, probably not going to get anything on the defensive coordinator. I'm wondering if it's going to be, if maybe we hear something over the weekend, or, because if they're going to do something, when's the Pro Bowl games? That's tomorrow, the Pro Bowl games?
I think it's Sunday.
All right. Well, it won't be Sunday, because I don't see the Giants breaking news, or that news getting out, when the league has an event.
You got to figure they're going to want to get it done before the Super Bowl.
You would think.
So I gotta think this gets done in the next 3 or 4 days. You gotta get it done long before the combine, right? You got to start discussing your strategy.
You want it done by the combine for sure.
You would think at least a few weeks before the combine. So I think this gets done next week at the latest.
I think it's again, I was told keep an eye out, that it was going to happen any day. It's like I swear, it's sometimes with these news breaks, when you're waiting for news, it's like you're an expectant parent. It's like any day now the baby's going to come, and it's like, it's like I said to my husband, I says, watch, it's going to happen tomorrow when we go on our date night. So, but I'm ready. I wrote 3 different scenarios for the website, and I also shot 3 different videos. So hopefully one of the 3 scenarios that I covered will be it, so that I can work on it remotely from my phone. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for us tonight. I want to thank y'all for popping in. If you didn't get your questions answered, pop them into the comment section below, because I do go through the questions and the comments, and I try to answer as many of them as I can. Tainah, Dog, I always love talking with you guys. You guys are the best. We always have a good time when we do these live streams, and I want to thank y'all for coming on.
Facts. We have a lot more fun when they win, so let's hope that that's what goes on next year. A lot more winning, but we have a lot of interesting things going to go on this offseason, without question. Big offseason for the Giants.
Dog, there's no Cowboys or Eagles in the Super Bowl.
That was great. It made the playoffs very enjoyable for me. My son,
what a week!
He was laughing big time when they were getting blown out. And he's like, "You're happy, aren't you, Daddy?" Yes, yeah, Daddy's happy. We know
you're raising this kid right. I like it.
Yeah, I got to raise him right. He's got to be a Giants fan. That's just the way it goes. He knows already. He knows
the rules, right?
He's a little version of me, so he already has it. He walks by, he doesn't watch the games. He watches like a few minutes and he goes, does the thing, but he comes back and he sees the Cowboys or Eagles lose and he just laughs and he goes, "You're happy, aren't you?" Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I give him a big high five when they're losing or whatever. It's hilarious.
I like where the Eagles are trending. They lose Jason Kelce. They're now gonna have to learn a new playbook. Jalen Hurts looked like he was losing it the last 5 or 6 weeks. I like where
Brown ain't happy. Yeah,
I like where the Eagles are trending. Keep trending that way.
they keep pushing all that money back, so it's going to get them eventually. And their dead capital on these players is stupid.
Yeah,
they can't get rid of any of these guys, so they're stuck there, and they're getting older. So, yeah,
exactly.
They are trending in the right direction for us.
Yeah.
Yes, and hopefully the Giants will be trending in the right direction. So,
That'd be nice.
All right, everybody. Again, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you tune in on Monday. I have Caroline Fenton of Locked On LSU. We're going to talk Jaden Daniels, everything you need to know. And of course, if the Giants do break news on the defensive coordinator, I will do an emergency podcast over the weekend. And of course, I'll have content over on Giants Country. I've got a bunch of stuff over on Giants Country, stuff that you guys asked about, from the salary cap, the contracts for Saquon Barkley to needs. We have the Senior Bowl reports. We got all kinds of stuff. We just had Brandon Olson on yesterday who was on the ground at the Senior Bowl. So check out some of our content here on Locked On Giants as well as on Giant Country. So everybody have a great weekend, and we'll do this again soon. I don't know when, but we'll do this again soon. Take care, everyone.
Later. Peace.